Meeting is called to order. Mr. Kevin Melby will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Melby. We'll need a roll call to determine if we've got a quorum.
Alderperson Hoppenjohn. Tepley.
Here.
McCarthy.
Here.
Chambers. Here. Walters.
Here.
Melby.
Here.
Downs. Here. Cairns.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Was this meeting properly noticed?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes. Once the council's had a minute to review those, entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion from Ms. Walters. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Chambers. Any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes are approved. Next on the agenda, approval of tonight's agenda. Have the council take a moment to review. I entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion from Ms. Tepley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda approved. Next, we have an informational presentation from Impact Life Blood Services.
So they can see the screen. One second here.
It's all yours.
Thank you. My name is Erica Davidson. I am the Territory Manager with Impact Life Blood Services. I want to thank you for allowing me some time to come and introduce myself and talk about our mission at the Blood Center. So our name, Impact Life, is our mission in action. We impact many lives over many, many years. We provide world-class blood products to communities and patients in need. Before I start with explaining a little bit about who we are and what we do, I want to introduce you to Lily. She is the reason why we do what we do at Impact Life. She is a 4-year-old, and by the time she was 4, she had 4 open heart surgeries. She had her first one week after her first birthday, and it's because of blood donation and blood donors and community partners that she was able to be served by her medical team, and she is able to have a full recovery. Blood donations make that possible. So a little bit about Impact Life. We are a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1974, so we are hitting our 50th year in operations. We are the exclusive provider of blood products to over 125 hospitals in Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Missouri. With 22 fixed donor sites, and we perform over 5,000 mobile blood drives each year. It is our mission to collect 3,600 units of blood per week to service those hospitals. A little bit about how the nation's blood supply works. America's Blood Centers is a national organization that brings together community-based independent blood centers such as Impact Life. We collectively provide 60% of the nation's blood supply. Then there's the American Red Cross, who provides 40% of the nation's blood supply. They also offer relief, disaster, and support services. BCA, or Blood Centers of America, is the largest blood supply network in the United States and is comprised of 60 community blood centers. This is a resource sharing organization that Impact Life is a member of, and this organization was put in place to make sure that hospitals can be served if one area of the nation, if a blood center is unable to provide for their hospitals in that area. Through BCA, we are able to resource share and help each other out. Impact Life is a member of a national emergency response team called BERC, Blood Emergency Readiness Corps. And we are on a 3-week rotation with other blood centers. There's 36 participating blood centers that respond to mass transfusion protocols, which can happen due to mass shootings, natural disasters, large-scale car accidents. So in this area, the northern region of our service region, we have recently partnered with and supplied to the Richland Hospital and Clinics, which is the reason why I'm here today to share this with you. We also have recently partnered with Reedsburg Area Medical Center, along with many other hospitals in Wisconsin, including SSM Health in Baraboo. If you look at the map, you can see we have a donor center in Dubuque, as well as our donor center in Madison. Our donor center in Madison is one of our newest donor centers, which was opened 2 years ago in 2021. We also have an inventory hub that we have in Monona, which services our hospitals. So when blood gets collected at our mobile blood drives and at our centers, it goes to Davenport for processing and testing. We actually ship the tubes for testing to Georgia. And then once the products have been processed, they are distributed to our inventory hubs, and that particular hub services Wisconsin hospitals. We are a partner in education. Education groups make up approximately 20% of our collections. So that is important to note, that our younger donors are the ones that are going to be replacing our older generation, which is comprised of 50% of our donor base is about 55 and older. So if you can imagine what happens if we don't start to educate our younger future donors, we can be left with a fairly large gap. And that gap can be closed by educating youth and partnering with our schools. So we work with colleges, we work with high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, as well as youth organizations like Girl Scouts. We provide a life savings grant for schools. Schools that host blood drives with us that have a qualifying blood drive will get grant dollars to put towards their educational expenses in their schools. We have a Student Impact Award, which recognizes high school seniors for their contributions to the blood supply, either as a blood donor or as a volunteer. We collaborate with teachers, so we've gone into schools and have done presentations in biology classes about blood components, how blood donation works, the importance of blood donation, and we also do presentations and blood typing in schools as well. So this is the current state of our inventory. This can be found on our website daily. It's updated daily. And it is a snapshot in time. This was taken yesterday morning, I believe. We have a 3-day supply of type O. Kind of sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Optimal levels need to be at about a 5 to 7 day supply of each blood type in order to supply our hospitals. So our O positive and our O negative donor inventory is at a 3-day supply. This is actually higher than I've ever seen it in a while. Typically we run anywhere between a 1 to 3 day supply of O positive and O negative blood. O negative blood is a universal donor, and that is because that type blood can be given to anybody. So if someone comes into the emergency room, there's an accident, mass shooting, they need a transfusion right away, there's no time to blood type that person, they are given O negative blood, which is the reason why it is always in need. O positive blood is 39% of the population has O positive blood, which is also a reason why we are always low on that as well, because it is also the most transfused. We do have upcoming blood drives here in Richland Center. We are proud to partner with Capital Wealth Advisory Group. They have a blood drive on our donor bus Tuesday, November 28th from 12 to 4, and you can sign up on our website or call our 1-800 number. And we are also going to be at the Richland Hospital and Clinic. They have regular blood drives now with Impact Life as their provider. Their upcoming blood drive will be Thursday, December 14th from 10 to 3 in Pippin Hall. So we are asking definitely for your support as a community to support your hospital by donating at the hospital or by donating with Impact Life at a community blood drive. So how can you help? You can donate blood. You can invite a friend to donate with you. A lot of the reasons why people don't donate blood is because they're never asked. You can book a free blood typing event with your organization or with your business or with your group. Ask us to come speak at your organization or your group at any time. Invite us to your community events, and we love to take part in community events. So we will have tables, we'll have presentations, however you would love us to be involved with you. And we definitely do love referrals. So please share with your friends and your family. Impact Life is now the exclusive provider of blood products to Richland Center Hospital. You can make an impact in a big way by hosting your own drive at your church, your school, your business, your organization, with your friends and family, and honor those people that you love. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I can be found at Impact Life. You can find me on the website. You can find me on through email, edavidson@impactlife.org, or you can always call our 1-800 number. Or there's my cell phone. You can write it down. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for being here.
And next time I'll sing. Be sure to sing
Would
for
you
you
sing
the
for
next
us next
time.
time?
I will. I
All right.
promise.
Since she was a performing arts major.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
While she's holding the microphone,
Yes.
any questions or comments from anyone in the room?
Bruce Reisler,
Hello, Bruce.
O positive.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm the hospital CEO, and we love working with your organization.
Thank you so much.
We made the switch from Red Cross, and you've been great to work with.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Excellent. Thanks, Bruce. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great, be careful getting to Dubuque.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Okay, next on the agenda is an informational presentation from the county administrator. Do we know if she's available? Actually, she was in a county meeting.
Right, so if she's not here right now, so she said she would try to make it.
Okay, so we will get back to that if she makes it to the meeting. Okay, then we'll move down to city and utility department head reports and concerns. Mr. Billy Jones, well, who's got the mic? Hold on. Who's got the mic? Is it over here? Hold on, Jason. Jason, let's start with you since you're holding it. We'll start with Jason Glassbender, Economic Development.
All right, I thought I'd just give a kind of a really quick overview on some of the major projects that I've been working on. One of the things is traffic studies and traffic planning on our Highway 14 corridor. Some of the main areas that we're focused on are Pleasant Valley Road, County Trunk O, Starlight Drive, and Jelland Road, where the new hospital site access will be. Of course, we're working with the DOT, MSA Engineering, Vierbecker Engineering, and KL Engineering to make sure that the studies are conducted properly and that we're trying to improve traffic there. I'd like to announce a major win with regard to our collaboration with the DOT on Highway 14 improvement between Bowman Drive and County Trunk O. Some of you may know that we held an informational meeting on October 18th here where the DOT publicly announced that they were changing their strategy from a mill and overlay of Highway 14 to a complete replacement, remove and replace the entire thing. Back in April of this year, the city administrator and myself requested a meeting with the DOT and the main agents that cover our area, and specifically requested that they consider doing that because we recognize that the subsurface of the current highway structure was such that if you did a mill and overlay, we were probably going to get about 5 years out of it. And so the complete removal and replacement should grant us around 20 good years. So that was a major win for the city. New hospital development, we continue to work progressively with the Richland Hospital on their relocation efforts. A lot of things there include congressional allocation grants that we're working on and tracking to help contribute to the utility extension. We've got the Highway 14 traffic study, which I kind of mentioned already. We're working with the hospital on annexation processes. And there's quite a bit of planning going on to future land use and what it might look like as we see development move out in the direction of 14 East. We're also working on tax incremental financing districts. Right now we're working with Southwest Regional Planning Commission to try to identify locations in the city that could benefit from having a tax incremental financing district. That's basically an economic development tool that allows the municipality to use future tax revenues to help encourage development today. City wayfinding signs, we've got a really good news on that one, Karen. We have received the go-ahead from the DOT on our wayfinding and city entrance sign project, which is part of our rebranding effort. Karen has assisted greatly in that project. They said that they would be issuing a permit soon, and in the Observer this week you'll see an ad posted for request for proposals, and hopefully by December we'll have some type of official quotes that the City Finance Committee and City Council can review. And it's probably a spring project at this point, but we'll finally see brand new wayfinding signs as long as the council approves. So EPA Technical Assistance Program that I've been collaborating with on Orange Street conceptual plan. I just received an email today from the EPA consultant who is in charge of the conceptual planning. They've provided a final draft, which I need to read. We'll share that with the City Planning Commission, and by the end of the year that plan should be finalized. That plan basically talks about our Orange Street corridor and identifies some conceptual drawings of what that corridor could look like in an improved state. Annexation, the city attorney, the city administrator, and myself are actively working to establish good standard procedure for annexation of new land into the city. We recognize that for Richland Center to progressively develop, that we need to improve on our annexation processes. In the past, there have been annexations that have created really inconsistent city bounds, and right now that's kind of hindering some of the development tools that are available to a municipality, like tax incremental financing. So we're trying to work on figuring out what a best process and procedure would be for city annexing. CEDS programming, which is Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, is a program that my office is now collaborating with on Southwest Regional Planning Commission. It's basically a regional economic development plan that has to be conducted by our Regional Economic Development Authority, which is Southwest Regional Planning Commission. It's required by the United States Economic Development Administration in order to put us in kind of good standing in the region for accessing US EDA grants and programs. So that's an important one that not only the city will participate in, but our county, lots of different groups throughout the county, and the counties surrounding us. Panorama building, people are always interested in knowing about that. Panorama buildings 2 and 3. We continue to try to move the Panorama project forward. Ellers, who is the city's financial advisor, is assisting in building financial models for that development, and we are just waiting on a couple of data pieces from our city assessor as well as the executive developer so that Ellers can finish the financial performa, financial model in order that we can advance negotiations with the developer. So that's a few of the things I'm working on.
Thanks, Jason. If you want, well, hold on, Jason.
Yep.
Go ahead if you want to give it to Todd. Mr. Todd Fisher.
I just have a brief update for you for the Schreiber East, Schreiber West foremost and RCRE incident that's gone on. I'm sure most of you are aware of it or at least heard stories about what had happened. Their treatment facility was upset. Starting on September 22nd at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Schreiber East low-strength waste was going to the city utilities wastewater. As of November 2nd, we are no longer receiving that. The last 2 weeks of October, they also hauled seed sludge from our anaerobic digester to their anaerobic digester, and in that same time frame, they also installed what I was told was 4 1.1 million BTU boilers to supply the heat because the digester operates at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Their heat source before was the generation of electricity from the methane generated by the digester to create the heat to make more methane, so you get this circle going. Once that digester was down, they had no methane generation, therefore no electrical generation, therefore no heat. So they were having a hard time getting it back up, even though we've had extremely mild weather, they could never get that digester to retake. Once they got the seed sludge from us, got anaerobic bacteria in there, and had those BTUs of heat, they are no longer on our system. I was told they were done hauling the high-strength waste off-site to Spring Green, to the farm fields. However, I do know I was told that there were some trucks running again today. So I haven't heard from anybody if there's a blip or a problem or an issue, if it didn't take or they just needed to take some capacity back. But where the future goes with this is both the city and the utility commission and the mayor, Ashley, we all agreed we had a standby agreement. It was put in place 11 years ago, it expired 8 years ago. It was their choice to let it expire. That will now be re-implemented. So we will be renegotiating that standby agreement. It basically has reserve capacity at the treatment plant. It still gives us the flexibility to decide if we have the capacity when they need it. However, there's a dollar value attached to that, and there's samplers, flow meters, there's what has to be there before I can go over there, open the valve, and let them come to our system. So that is in the works to be renegotiated. I would like to have that done by the end of the year, just because I think the longer we let it go, the farther it gets away from everybody's mind until something happens again. So that was just...
Thanks, Todd. Aaron, Joyce, did you have anything for tonight? Thanks, Todd.
Since we won't have another meeting before the 1st of December, a couple quick updates. Sean Walsh in our office is retiring. December 1st will be her last day, so congratulations to Sean. And also, December 1st starts the new cycle for elections. That'll be the first day that nomination papers can be circulated. We do have positions here in the city that are up for election this coming spring, including the mayor. In District 1, Connie Hoppenjohn's seat will be up for election. District 2, Tom McCarthy's seat. District 3, Kevin Melby, and District 4, Ryan Cairns. Again, December 1st, nomination papers can be circulated. I have those in my office. They are due back by 5 p.m. January 2nd. Those who might want to file non-candidacy, those are due by December 22nd. Primary election, if necessary, will be February 20th, and then the spring general election will be April 2nd. So, elections are coming
Thank you, Mr.
before we know it.
Thank you. While we're on this side of the room, Ashley, did you have anything?
Yeah, just a few things. We're deep in the budget process, and tonight at Finance we scheduled some budget hearings for department heads. They will be occurring on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Once we conclude the budget process, we'll go to work on submitting and publishing an RFP for a reevaluation. Tomorrow, Mark Stewart, our contracted zoning administrator, he will be out of the office. He typically holds hours on Wednesdays, but he is ill. So he's sending a colleague to replace him. So if you have any zoning needs, we will have somebody in the office, but it won't be Mark. Some of you may have noticed that there's a slight change to the lobby desk out there. We do now have Beth Posh in the clerk's office. She's now working from that area and able to greet people as they come in and help people directly from that desk rather than going into the clerk treasurer's office. And, you know, related to that was Sean's retirement, as Aaron mentioned. There's some other transitions and things like that we're working through and navigating right now, which we'll also talk about later on in the agenda, but we will be seeking to hire a treasurer in the very, very near future to replace Sean. And lastly, I've had the pleasure of working with Chief Jones through the hiring process for an administrative assistant, which we will be concluding in the near future.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, I believe Mr. Jones tactfully handed the microphone to our librarian.
Just a very quick update for the library. We have had 2 full-time positions open. We did just recently fill one of them, promoted from within, which was wonderful. However, that leaves us with now a part-time position to fill as well. The full-time position that remains open is for a programming coordinator. The part-time is for a library assistant. So if you know anyone that might be interested in those positions, please visit our website for job descriptions. And the other thing I would mention is that we're, like other city departments, we're looking to make sure that our building security is up to par and looking at making some purchases there. Thank you.
Thank you. And we needed Police Chief Billy Jones.
Well, I tried to get Vanessa and Scott to talk, but apparently.
Oh, is that right?
So I just have a couple quick updates. The police department, along with the Partners for Prevention Coalition, did their October, or their second compliance check over the October 20th and 21st weekend. We had 17 establishments checked in the city. We had 4 failures out of those 17 checked, so still not a bad average. And each of the failed checks, easy remedy if they would have just looked at the IDs. Would have solved that problem. So unfortunately, those 4 did not check the IDs and just allowed the underage person to purchase. But that's an easy fix. I have faith in them, and we'll get them back on the right track. And then just an update. Lieutenant Moe is in her second week of a 3-week, over 3-month leadership and law enforcement training that she's taking that is being put on by DOJ. And so far her report is very, very positive. She's learning a lot of things, and I have all the faith in the world that she's going to bring back some good information to us. So.
How are things going with the community resource officer at the high school?
Very, very good. Just had a meeting today with the high school on some security checks and some security assessments of some outlying buildings. But every time I speak to somebody at the school, it's all positive. Officer Wilson is involving himself in a lot of different aspects. None that I can complain are bad as of right now, but he is very, very busy every single day. Receives a lot of phone calls from the school district on advice and enforcement type of things, and he's thriving. So it's going well.
So Halloween was busy in the city.
Very busy.
Any issues?
No.
I haven't heard any.
No, I have not heard any. I have been hearing tons and tons of raves about, is Jody here? No, Jody's not here. About the trick or trunk in the park. Yeah. Huge success. I think even trunk or treat may just take over trick or treating altogether. It was a huge turnout. I think I bought, I know I bought well over 18 pounds of candy, and that 18 pounds was gone. just in our car, so at the trunk or treat. So, very, very good. And then the Legion also had an event that was an unbelievable, great turnout as well. So, yeah, all the way around Halloween was good.
Excellent. And do we still have an open spot for an officer? Was it?
So we do still have an open spot for a police officer position. Actually holding 2 interviews this coming Thursday for possible applicants that will have to be sponsored through the academy. However, it's just kind of the road that we've been going down. So hopefully with any luck. And then as Ashley mentioned, we had some very, very good interviews this last week for the administrative assistant vacancy that I have, and hopefully we'll have an answer here coming up and be able to give out a conditional offer on that as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Wendell, Attorney Wendell, just spoke into my ear and said you didn't specifically state that you gave away the 18 pounds of candy, just that it was gone.
We did give it away.
Okay. Thank you, Billy. Attorney Wendell, did you have anything for the public tonight?
You're going to be sick of hearing me talk by the end of the night, so I'll save it for my presentation later.
Okay, I believe we hit every department head who is present tonight. So next on the agenda, Mayor and Older Persons Committee, Commission Board reports and comments or items to be discussed at a future meeting. Karen Tepley.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Tom McCarthy.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Mark Chambers.
Nothing this evening, sir.
You got it. Melanie Walters.
Quick question is, because I see them putting up the rotary lights in the park, and I know we did, as the council, we did that last year, so we might want to be thinking about if we want to do that again this year, to volunteer down there.
That conversation started yesterday, so it will definitely be, I'm sure we'll be doing it again. The council and myself, we manned it for 2 nights, and I think it's a great thing. So you bet. Anything else?
No, that was it. Thank
Mr.
you.
Kevin Melby. Mr. Steve Downs.
Nothing for me.
Ryan Cairns.
Nothing, Mayor, thank you.
The only other thing I just wanted to give a mention to, we had our inaugural Pumpkin Fest in the city as part of Halloween, which was brought to us by an enthusiastic group of local residents who brought it down here, said we think it'll be great. But they took it. We didn't do it. They put a group together that threw tremendous energy into it, and they got it off the ground. They got what they wanted. A lot of people had a good time. A lot of businesses had a good time. This was the first year to say hello. The anticipation is it'll grow from here, and I just commend them for putting all that energy. I just realized Sheila's here. Hi, Sheila. Do you want to say anything about Pumpkin Fest?
Could I?
Yes.
Well, as part of the Pumpkin Fest committee, I talked about anything.
We just wanted to really sincerely thank the city and the county for working with us to make the first annual Pumpkin Fest such a success. With any new event, we had some hiccups along the way, but we worked through them. We wanted to especially thank at the city, Mayor Coppernall, Ashley, the business owners downtown. I always have notes. We have to do a big shout out to Scott Gald and his crew for putting up the banners and allowing the decorations on the poles. It wouldn't have happened without them. We also wanted to thank Billy Jones from the Richland Center Police Department for advising us on street signs. They will be a foot shorter next year. We're already in the planning for the second Pumpkin Fest. As anything that's a success, communication is the key. So we'll coordinate with Scott on the decorations and Chief Jones on making the stalks, as I said, a foot shorter. We received tons of compliments on all of it and making it such a wonderful family event for our community. We just want to give a really sincere, heartfelt thank you for making it such a success. The other thing I really wanted to note, though, was the joint effort by so many organizations coming together. You had from Simon's to the theater to the 80 German Warehouse to Chicken Ridge. I mean, there were just the trick-or-treat in the park. I mean, what was really great was just seeing it all come together and everyone working together. So just a big thank you to everyone for making it such a success, and can't wait for Pumpkin Fest 2, and people are already getting some really big ideas. So we'll see what the theme is for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Okay, next on the agenda tonight is the Treasurer's Report, Mr. Aaron Joyce.
This is the Treasurer's Report for the period ending October 31st, 2023 City General had an ending balance of $326,694. State Pool number 1 had an ending balance of $4,098,872. The State Pool number 2 had an ending balance of $608,159. State Pool number 3, the TIF for Panorama Estates, ending balance of $172,672. State Pool number 6, that had an ending balance of $138,948. Further down the list, the library checking, they had an ending balance of $261,103. The Greater Richland Tourism account had an ending balance of $30,452. And the affordable housing account, that had an ending balance of $1,023,602. And then lastly, State Pool number 4 projects account had an ending balance of $1,650,523.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from Mr. Joyce? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve tonight's treasurer's report.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Steve Downs, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Melanie Walters. Any discussion of the treasurer's report? Hearing none, Aaron, we'll need a roll call vote.
Alderperson Tepley?
Aye.
McCarthy? Chambers?
Aye.
Walters?
Aye.
Tepley? Melby?
Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Cairns?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, payment of bills. While the council reviews tonight's bills, it is my duty to read the following. The bills presented on this day, excluding any library fund invoices, have been referred to the Finance and Budget, having been referred to the Finance and Budget Committee, and said committee, having duly investigated and audited these bills, hereby make the following recommendations: that the city bills presented on this day be paid with the following adjustments and or exceptions. None are listed. It is signed by all 3 members of the Finance and Budget Committee. Once the council's had a moment to review, entertain a motion to pay tonight's bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Motion from Karen Tepley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Kevin Melby. Any discussion of the bills? Hearing none, Mr. Joyce will need a roll call vote.
Alderperson McCarthy?
Aye.
Chambers?
Aye.
Walters?
Aye.
Melby?
Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Cairns?
Aye.
Tepley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Candace, do you want to go now, or do you want me to let you?
Whatever.
We'll go back up the agenda. Our county administrator is here, and we have an informational presentation on the reconfiguration process for the campus, if you've got the microphone. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Do you want me to stand? Do I?
Whatever you're
Am
comfortable
I
doing.
good here?
Hey.
Oh,
Down more. Up. There you go.
better?
Got it.
Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm the County Administrator, Candace Pesch. And I've been asked just to come and give a brief update on the campus reconfiguration process. There's not a lot to say at this point. Realistically, it's in very early stages. We are still actively involved in a lease with the UW campus, or the UW Platteville system, I should say. That has not changed at this point. We have been notified, as you all know, that the campus will be closing, but at this point, that is not a negotiated item. We don't know when, we don't know how. All of those things are ongoing in discussion. The county does plan eventually to engage in a very open and transparent proposal process for anyone who has any thoughts or ideas on the reutilization or the repurposing of the campus. But until we know the viability of the buildings and the campus in and of itself, we aren't going to define what that process will look like. The RFP is out. The deadline for questions was November 3rd. I have received a very large amount of interest. I am pleased to say probably 10 to 12 entities have sent questions and requested blueprints and HVAC and all of the millions of items that go along with the county buildings and the campus buildings. So that's very encouraging that we have that large amount of interest. And so November 30th will be the walkthrough for all of them to come and actually tour the campus, go through the buildings, ask questions, and get all the information. And then proposals are due in December, and the final decision on which contractor will be selected will be presented to the board on January 25th. So the process is underway. We are working towards resolution on this matter, but at this point, that's really all there is to report.
I think it's fair to say it's a lot to sort out.
It's a lot to sort out.
There's still a lease, there's how many buildings, and yeah, it's quite a process. Dave Turk and I have been talking quite a lot. He's the chair of your committee.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and people call me a lot and ask, and I refer them either to you or to Dave. Correct thing to do?
Yes.
Yeah, if your
Correct.
questions, just get a hold of your rep at the county.
Absolutely, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has, but typically, that's really the response at this point. It's a very slow-moving train.
Any questions or comments for Camus? Thanks for joining us tonight. Sorry to make you rush over here, but I sure appreciate the update. Okay, and back down to where we are now at. Planning Commission recommendations in action. Consider the request of land division on tax parcel 276-1712-1000 and 1000 US Highway 14 West. Mr. Wendell, after our discussion prior to the meeting, what is your advice at this time?
It would be advisable to adjourn this item to a later time while we determine whether or not there was a deficiency in the notice.
Okay.
And then that will also allow the parties to further engage in discussions regarding the matters that were brought to our attention earlier.
Okay, so recommendation at this point is to adjourn this item until a further date, so that in this case, the school district and the American Legion can talk about how they want to handle potential issue that we believe they can resolve, and to make sure that all interested parties receive proper notice before we take action. Okay, motion to do so? I have a motion from Mr. McCarthy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Chambers. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of adjourning this item to a later date, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Aaron, did you get that? Or do you want- I can wait.
You got it.
You've been clerk for a while, you're typing faster all the time. That was pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, next up, Finance Committee recommendations and action, Mr. Ryan Kemp.
Item 5, consider purchase of a police squad vehicle and related equipment. Finance met before council and reviewed the request from Police Chief Jones for a new squad. You can see in your packet that we received sealed bids from Philback, Sleepy Hollow, and Jones Chevrolet. The truck that Chief Jones is requesting is coming from unallocated contingency, and the pickup truck that Finance, after looking at the recommendation and listening to Chief Jones, would be the 2024 Silverado from Jones Chevrolet. And it also has to be upfitted with radios for the police department. So my motion would be to authorize the purchase of the 2024 black Chevy Silverado 1500 from Jones Chevrolet and related radio equipment from the unallocated contingency fund at a cost not to exceed $56,000.
Motion from Mr. Cairns, is there a second?
A second.
Second from Ms. Templey. Discussion?
Ryan, was that the gray one or the black one, number 5? Or
Black.
number 7?
Black.
Black.
Black? Okay, thank you.
There's only one black on there.
Gotcha. It looked like number 5 was highlighted, that's why I asked.
Correct. You're right, it was highlighted, but in conversation there was a mix-up.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Downs, did you have a question? Okay, further discussion?
Is the price on the bottom correct then? It says 46.
Mr. Melby, please speak into your
It
microphone.
says
Thank you, sir.
46,450. That's the price for number 5. The black one is 47,500.
Correct, so that is based on the highlighted one, but the 56,000 that Ryan mentioned is still appropriate.
It includes the re-equipment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Joyce will need a roll call vote.
Alderperson Chambers.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Melby.
Aye.
Downs. Cairns.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Items for discussion and action. Item 6, status of the north-south portion East 5th Street on parcel 276-1635-8500 and its potential use for public travel. Attorney Michael Wendell.
So I actually became aware of this issue prior to my appointment. It was discussed at a meeting that I was attending for another reason. But shortly thereafter, I was asked to investigate the issue. My conclusion is that the property is ripe for opening as a street. It was properly dedicated, the dedication was properly recorded. However, the exclusive authority to adjudicate whether or not a street is a necessity or in the public interest lies with this body. My understanding is that the proper amount of landowners have submitted a full petition, and so I advise that the matter be set for public discussion. And again, my opinion at this time is that it is solely the responsibility of this body, the Common Council, to make a determination as to whether or not opening the land as a public street is in the public interest.
Okay, I want to start this. Todd Fisher, you're here. Could we get the microphone to Mr. Fisher? What I wanted to discuss, and the reason he's here tonight, is what I was told a couple of months ago was that the city utilities has plans in the near future to tear some of that land up back there, and I'll just let Todd explain that.
Okay, so first of all, I'm not an advocate for paving or not paving or anything else. My advice to you is on the basis it gets paved. Who pays for it, who does it, doesn't matter. It should not happen until the project work is done and underneath that area first. So where we left off from this year, we've redone 5th Street coming back in. On this corner right here and underneath the O of HO 51, there is a very brittle concrete structure that we were instructed by our retired DPW that do not hit it with a bucket, do not touch it because it will crumble. He's replaced it 2 or 3 times and it's very, very shallow. It's also not able to pick up the amount of water we're talking about. Jason, if you can zoom out. The issue we've got when it comes to stormwater, I'm sure all of you know what the Story Field area looks like. It's a great big giant bowl. All that water comes down, the storm sewer that exists in understory field picks that up. So the football field didn't flood years ago, but once it hits down here, it goes to the surface on 4th Street. There is no pipes to convey that storm water all the way down. So as he zoomed out here, wow. Main Street is the first storm sewer that we can actually get anything tied into. So what we, and I say we meaning Steve Krieger from the water, myself with wastewater, and Terry Nelson, who's the retired DPW, have identified that our next set of phases of projects, we need to go down to 4th Street by St. Mary's, restart our street project phases and work our way up to there with storm sewer and with bigger water mains to feed the backside of the booster station, which feeds water pressure up and over all the way to 8th Street, off from that right at Cedar. Without doing that, we can't bury pipe under the ground to receive water and just have it deadhead. So we cannot start in this area of 5th Street and try and make repairs and project advancements there. We have to start at the end where the water is going to be received and work our way up. Now, the question is going to be, well, how many phases is that going to take? I don't know. We're already on the books for phase 3 being 8th Street and Park Street up by the cemetery for 2024. If everything goes perfect with the hospital and we can still go ahead with our projects and whatever else we've got funding to go into and the remodel or revitalization of the hospital site currently, all that stuff plays into whether you as the city have enough money to put into that. From a sanitary sewer standpoint, the amount of sanitary pipe going up 4th Street is actually less than what we put in the ground this year during phase 2. So it's not the amount of sanitary pipe, but what you guys paid on phase 2 had little to no storm sewer. And now you're talking about running significantly sized concrete storm sewer pipe all the way from Main Street, all the way up to 5th and Cedar. That's gonna be a huge ticket item for you guys, and that's what's gonna decide whether we can do it in 2 phases, 3 phases, or even 4 phases. It's gonna come down to what money's available at the city coffers.
Can I ask, you just said it, but if you could repeat, which end do you need to start on?
Need to start at 4th and Main.
Okay.
That is the only storm sewer that we can pick up this flow from. Okay, so we have to start there and work our way all the way up there. The issue is, on this map, just so everybody's clear, this map is not correct. Okay, if you can see this big purple line coming right down through here and goes right underneath Troy Putz's garage and his house. It doesn't exist there. What it actually does is turns right out of this property. We're talking about whether it gets pavement, goes over here and comes out and daylights onto the street right here between these 2 houses. So if you went by there, there's steel corrugated pipe, all rusty, that sticks out of the bank, and that's all that flow from that entire area, from Sunny Lane, up Pleasant Valley, all the way down, ends up on that surface drainage at 4th Street. What we're trying to fix, best idea I can give you is what we do to Hazeltine. All that water that runs in the curb and gutter, all that storm water that runs down that area, we want to put it underground. We're going to try and design for a 50-year storm event, but a 50-year storm event includes the pipe underground and the curb and gutter. So a normal average rainflow is going to be underground in the pipe. Will it be 30 before it exceeds that and has to run down the curb and gutter? Don't know. That's what the engineers are for. But what I'm saying is, if it takes $10,000 or $20,000 to pave that area, it doesn't make any difference if it's the private residents' money or if it's your money. In hopefully less than 4 years, we're going to be in there digging it up. It's a waste of money because we have to get rid of that pipe. The other problem is all of this drainage from Summit still comes down to this corner of 5th, right there. We have to redo those lines and bury them deeper to let that water drain out and tie into the new storm main along 4th Street. We have to do that work or you're going to put blacktop over unsettled ground. Again, a waste of money. You're going to put all that pavement down and you're going to have cracks in it less than a year because it's going to settle over top of those corrugated pipes. So again, my advice is whatever you decide, whatever long-term agreements, whatever contracts, whatever is decided, it's got to be after whatever project work gets done there for storm sewer and storm water management, because otherwise you're just wasting money.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Mr. Wendell.
Just one other factor for the council's consideration is that my understanding is that there are some buildings adjoining the property that may be rendered non-conforming should the council make the decision to open up it as a street. And as such, we might be looking at raise orders or other corrective measures.
So, okay, specifically in that case, as I understand it, it's a couple of the garages, okay? So if that happens and we make that a street, they are right against the street, so you're talking about now they're non-conforming and they may face a raise order, or they would, is that at the council's discretion, or is that just mandatory?
I do not have the information that I would need to say anything definitive there. My understanding of the streets that would be required under ordinances and statutes would be that they would substantially encroach on the current placement of garages or other buildings. I don't see how the street could function with that encroachment, and so I think a raise order would be the only appropriate measure.
Okay, so just for discussion, if instead of making it a street, I guess the gravel portion is what I'll call it, if that somehow became a private drive, are these buildings then not subject to that because it's not a street?
Again, I would need to make that determination. The landowners may also have opinions on that matter.
I'm sure they do.
Maybe it were some kind of joint ownership if it's a shared access route. But a private drive would not be subject to the same restrictions that a public road would.
Okay, so I'll just speak for myself, and obviously any older person can jump in. I have no issue at all with it ever being paved. I agree with Mr. Fisher, it doesn't make sense to do it if you're just going to tear it up, but when it's ready to go, I don't have a problem with that, and just on principle, it doesn't matter to me if it's a private drive or a street. I just want to do this the right way, if that's what happens, so we don't accidentally create an issue for the residents back there. You know, imagine that. You've got a garage there and we make it a street and say you have to tear it down. I don't want to get into that. I don't think anybody else up here does either. Any comments from the council? Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, on the question, so I know we've had a few other issues where it's a private drive, but yet the city maintains it as far as snow plowing and the like. So do we write something in that the city will plow a private drive, or how does that?
Yeah, and right now, it's not considered, it was never adopted as a street, but the city does plow it. I believe we're plowing the gravel, are we not? City?
You have been since 1983, and you hold the deed to the property, and it's not a private street. You have a deed from Everett McCollum in 1960,
Yep.
transferring a 30-foot strip, 130 feet long, for the purposes of a street. Says right in the deed.
Yep, and the city just never...
In 2012, in contrast to what he says, the city came and put in brand new tubing from the north side of East 5th Street all the way down in front of my garage. They put in a new pillbox in the ground and connected it to the 45-degree angle that shoots all the way across my neighbor's backyard, goes out by his garage and dumps into the street. So the tubing that's in that section of the street is as recent as 2012, and I don't think it's rusted out. I put a road tube in at my farm in 1988, and it was a used road tube, and it's still solid as can be. I would imagine your road tube is equally as good. Doesn't have heavy traffic, as you know.
Thanks, Chuck. Can we get the microphone back to Todd? Just for a second, I just have a question, Mr. Fisher. Todd, did you hear what Chuck just said?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Where the pipe is rusted is right out of this concrete box right here, and again, that concrete box is poor material. It's been redone a couple different times, and it's so shallow and so brittle, you can't hardly get in there to work or excavate. It's actually settled. If you look at it right now versus the new pavement that was just put in on that section of 5th Street with this year's project, it's sitting about 18 inches low and tipped at an angle, and it's a graded opening that's probably less than a foot. It's not big. A normal standard catch basin, you're talking about any curb and gutter you see in town, you've got a 3-foot by 2-foot graded opening that catches the flow as it comes down. With these hillsides and with this velocity of water, you can see on Hazeltine and many other streets, we've had to double up those catch basins in areas because that volume of water coming down is not going to get caught by one of those openings. You have to have 2 on each side of the street. So again, that's where the engineering comes in. Chuck is absolutely right. The piping underneath this ground here is fine, but that's not where the traffic's going to drive over it. And right now, that is again above grade. It comes out above the curb. That's not going to help us get water below grade and in the storm sewer pipe. So again, I understand exactly what he's saying. There's been fixes on it over the years, but again, long term, you've got all the water from Pleasant Valley coming to that grade.
Okay, so as you stated, this next summer, 8th Street will be finished, okay? And then we can look at what's next. Do we have a time frame established yet to do the engineering work for what you're talking about?
We brought it up yesterday at the department head meeting. We would like to move forward with that, but that's not a decision for the administrator, the wastewater superintendent, or the water.
Yep.
We have to come to you folks, our utility commission. We have to decide where do we go next.
Yep.
And that's always going to be at the mercy of where else do our finances need to go. Because again, as we've stated many times, what might the hospital, what might Panorama, what might all these developments require, that same $100,000 might have to go other places and not to the project that year. So again, we can't guarantee anybody it will be done in 2025. We can't do that.
Okay.
We don't know.
Thank you, Todd. Mr. Wendell, when I asked about if it's a private drive, are they subject to setbacks and these other questions that you said you needed time to look at, how much time do you need to do that?
2 days.
Okay, good. Okay, council, thoughts, questions? No? Okay. All right, anyone else that's here tonight? Yeah, if we could get the microphone.
I only have the one question. I mean, if you don't know if you can afford it, how do you know until you get a proposal for it? I notice that you're going to continue to do road work on the upper end of, probably you'd class it as Story Drive and 8th Street and so on, but have you ever asked for a proposal for doing that correction in the road tube that goes back there?
That's what I just asked Todd. That's exactly where we're at, is that that's next on the list to look at.
Okay. That's easy.
Yeah. And while the microphone's out there, I don't know, anyone else from the neighborhood with a question or comment? Yeah.
Just curious, for the project that was just completed, will that pavement have to get ripped up for this new concrete tubing to get placed?
Todd's right behind you.
No, it won't. Everything was done. This was an alternate to come down from Story and Summit down this far and on this section of fill. We stopped where we did because we'd already identified that this project had to come and abut to it from the other side. So again, we've got to put storm main all the way from that intersection of 5th and Cedar back to 4th Street and all the way down 4th Street to dump into that main storm sewer main on 4th Street. So that's where we've got to come up and around to take it out of the backyard and put it out and under the streets to get it to convey that way. So again, we don't have to rip any pavement up that's in that intersection that was put down. We're all outside of that now.
Thanks. And then I guess this seems like a pretty important pinch point for the development of Story Field. It seems like that might be an issue going forward. Maybe it needs to be dealt with before that, but I'm not sure.
No, I think that's a fair point. You know, we've been, as we started, as you know, Cedar, 7th, Cedar, now 8th, and as you heard Mr. Fisher detail, your neighborhood is going to get a lot more attention. I don't see a reason that this can't be part of that. We just have to get the time frame established of when each part will be done, and that's what we'll do next. Then sort out what the best answer is, I guess, whether it's a street or private drive, and that's why we need the attorney to review that and give us some advice. We can do, and we will. Council, any other questions, comments on this item? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
I just have one last question.
That's fine.
How in the world is this going to change anything that's going on back there because you should choose to open that street tonight and call it an open street? It seems like that's been the challenge all the way through this, and I don't see what would change. You are plowing the street, you're not going to pave the street, and it comes down to the final question. Why is it that you won't open it? I mean, what disadvantage does the city have with choosing not to declare that an open street?
Okay, do you have an opinion on that? Did you hear his question?
Yes, so it is not simply a matter of declaring it a street. By designating it a public street, that imposes upon the city certain obligations in terms of, like I mentioned earlier, ordinance and statutory requirements for the condition of the street, the installation of curbs and gutters. And so we couldn't just declare it an open street and leave it as it exists currently. By act of accepting the dedication and opening it as a street, we would then need to bring it up to street conditions.
What does that do to the property values back there if you say, hey, I have this property here, I'm interested in selling it. However, the city doesn't consider this a street, they don't consider it open. This is my only access to my home, my garage, but I'd sure like you to buy it.
I'm not a realtor, and so I do not have an opinion as to how that might impact property values. As an attorney, I can say that if that's the only means of access, there's likely a case for a prescriptive easement. And so that would, by default, allow that access. But I don't really have an answer for how that impacts property values.
Chuck, that's also why I asked him to review, just so we know ramifications of a private drive there. So we don't get into, I mean, getting it paved at some point, so on, I'm not opposed. I just want to make sure it's done correctly. So as he just mentioned, curb and gutter, things like that, I don't want to accidentally create an issue for you guys back there, because now the ordinances and things say we have to change what's there and make a problem for you. That's why I mentioned your garage back there and Troy's would become non-conforming structures if our ordinance. I don't want to get into now we have to give you a raise permit for your garage. Can you imagine that? So that's.
I can't imagine why you would let Troy build a garage or me build a garage and then 25 years later have to tell us we're going to need to tear it down.
I can. It's not a street right now. And if we made it a street, then it would be a non-conforming structure. That's why I said that. That's what we don't want to do.
Any structure right-of-way shall be set back not less than 20 feet from the right-of-way line of any public street. So the middle line of that, assuming that we need to dedicate it to at least a 33-foot width, that means, somebody check my math, but approximately 33 feet or so back from that center line would be the requirement for a setback.
And that's why maybe it's better to declare it a private drive so nothing gets touched, but it gets paved, or we leave it the way it is, which I know you don't want to do that. But if we could move it forward, maybe as a private drive, it could at least become paved and improve it that way for you guys back there, which I know is important. I've heard from both families that are here, and I know it matters to you. I'm saying I'm not opposed. I just want to make sure we don't, that we do it the best way so we don't create an accidental issue back there for you.
If it's declared a street, does the city council have the wherewithal to make exemptions for the buildings that are already there?
Yeah, I asked that question. And
so a variance could be granted. Again, the reality of having a building obstructing that much of the visibility of a public road is something that would take a lot of consideration. But no, it would be within the council's authority to grant a variance for a non-conforming structure.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further, guys? Okay, yeah?
Just one question. You know, the legalese of opening a street, what is the definition of opening?
So I understand the legalese. I'm trying to translate it to English. Okay. The former property owner has held out the property as a street. That part has been properly done. Opening the street would be the council coming in and accepting the gift that's on offer. Until that part happens, it is, again, resorting to legalese, a parcel of property for street use, but is not in fact a street. Just so you know you're not alone in this, the Wisconsin League of Municipalities have published not one but two separate articles on this issue entitled, "When is a Street a Street?" And so even those of us who understand legalese, it's not a simple answer. But it basically, opening the street is more of a term of procedure than, you know, physically going there and opening anything up. And it's essentially the act of this council to declare the property a street and to obligate itself to all the terms that requires of them.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I read that article. The legalese, it takes some digesting. It sounds like we haven't accepted, or there's a dedication on board. My question is, I guess there's three parts. One, by signing the deed over, that says in the deed, signed over to the city with purposes to be used as a street, and then the city then signing it, is that not acceptance? If not, to, by common law, acceptance for the dedication. It could be either acceptance from the governing body or the city versus being used by public folks as a street. And then three, principal, if the street in question was offered and then used publicly as a street for over 20 years, then it's now considered a street by principal.
regardless of the legalese, I guess, I just want it to be done to the point where my neighbors don't lose a garage, it's paved, it continues to be plowed, and the garbage trucks don't have to knock over my neighbor's mail, and I don't have to change out the gravel every year and spread it all around. So that's really what I care about. But regarding the legalese, those are my clarification and questions.
Okay. Regarding acceptance, there is actually no obligation for the receiving party in a real estate transaction to sign anything. I have actually had personal experience with a person who was under guardianship who lost their Medicaid eligibility because their former spouse deeded them property without their knowledge or consent. And it was considered an asset and they ended up losing that. So the city, and I'm looking at the deed, the city did not sign it in any way that I can see. It's notarized, the McCollum signed it, and then the drafter of the deed. So to answer your first question, no, that would not be an acceptance of it. Further, there are statutory provisions that require an affirmative action by the council in order to actually qualify as an acceptance. Common law and the common use provisions are sort of the same thing. You know, the nearest thing, the 20-year marker, comes to us most frequently from an adverse possession. And correct me if I'm wrong, I've never actually personally seen this street, but the only use to which it has been put is as the landowners accessing their property.
Mail uses it, garbage truck uses it, so I guess the city services use that property.
And so I would need to research further whether or not that use would be sufficient to constitute it as a street by dint of use, if not by active action by the council. I would suspect not, simply because the mail and the garbage are going to do what they need to do to get to where they need to be to provide the services. A public street, I think, in the common understanding of what a street is the public using it to traverse from one point to another. That's not what's happening with the use that you described. What?
So you're, that's good.
Possibly for a walkway. So just get those 18 pounds of candy for the next 20 years and we'll talk again.
That much business.
Yeah. Chuck, go ahead.
Mr. Ray Lawton, who was city clerk, signed the deed of that property. Was he not an official signer for the city?
I see his name on here. There's no indication. That would be, if I were drafting a deed like this is where I would put that I drafted it. Or there are two ways to verify a deed in Wisconsin, one of which is to have it notarized, the other of it is, I don't even remember the term for it, but basically we lawyers can just sign it and say, authenticated, thank you. We can just say, yeah, we did this right. So that if he signed it as an official representative of the city, that is not reflected in any of the materials available to me, other than I can see his signature on the deed. There's no indication that that was indicative of an acceptance of the dedication. And I would say that the clerk lacks the authority to unilaterally make that determination.
So he just did this because he liked to sign papers and not for the city at the time?
I would assume that liking to sign papers would be a requisite to serving as clerk, but there's nothing requiring his signature on this document. Whether it was simply an additional security measure, whether the property owner or former property owners wanted an acknowledgement by someone in the city that the deed had been received, I don't know. I was negative 27 years old when this was signed, so I don't want to speculate on a transaction that I wasn't part of.
Okay. All right, and you stated that you had a couple days, you can have all this research.
I did it earlier. So when I said the 20 foot
so everything that was going to take 2 days, you just did.
Operate under principles similar to Scotty from Star Trek.
Okay, so there's nothing else you feel you need to research? Is that where you are?
I would say that further research would be directed by the action that the council chooses to take or not to take tonight.
All right, so, well, we're gonna go back to the question, if we make this a street, if it is city street, are we gonna end up telling people that they're the garage down? I mean, we can't.
If there is serious consideration for taking action of opening this as a street, my recommendation would be that it also be adjourned to at earliest next month's meeting, so that I can ensure that we have every opportunity to do so in a manner which meets the needs of the landowners and doesn't cause more trouble than it solves.
Okay, so you stated when you were asked that an exception could be made for existing structures if the council chose to do it.
Yes.
That's true. Okay, and then would we need to put curb and gutter back in there?
So since this had not yet been seriously considered prior to now, that is things I have not researched.
That's okay.
So I know that there are obligations that come with declaring it a street. What those obligations are, the timeline in which we have to meet those are not things that I currently am aware of.
So
those are probably going to take more than 2 days though.
The recommendation is to adjourn this to the next meeting so that you can research these things and report back to the council.
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to do so.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Walters. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Cairns, or was that Mr. Downs? Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Aaron, let's have a roll call vote.
Alderperson Walters.
Aye.
Melby.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Chambers.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, I'm going to take a 5-minute break, please.
Says we're good to go.
Good, Rob? Okay, next is item 7, report on potential redevelopment of Jefferson Elementary Economic Development Director, Mr. Jason Glassburner.
Yeah, I just wanted to real quickly inform the public and the council that there is an attempt to redevelop the Jefferson School building. There was an accepted offer by the school from Carrie Norman, and Carrie, we've been working with Carrie to try to figure out a way to offer the most flexibility in the zoning of the current school building into a property that would allow multiple uses. And so this will be going before Planning Commission. It's a very detailed process that we have to go through. It's called rezoning into what's called a planned unit development. Again, we just wanted to inform the council that we are working on this. It will be before you. This is a picture of, or a plan of the Jefferson. So this is Main. The building sits like that. The planned unit development rezone requires that we do both a general implementation plan and a specific implementation plan. This would represent an element of the general plan, which Planning Commission would look at and say, do we believe that rezoning and the use in this way would be good for the public? And then specific implementation gets down to more than just identifying what number of potential uses could be there, but what exactly will be there. And so, again, it is a long process, but I did want the council to be aware that you probably, most likely, if we get through Planning Commission and we continue on the path that we are, you will be needing to visit this and declare whether or not you accept the general implementation plan, and then from there, specific uses. So.
Questions or comments from Mr. Glassburner?
Do we have a rough number on the purchase price for that building?
I never heard it.
I'm guessing the school board would have had to announce it, but I don't recall what it was.
I know they did, I just said, wait a minute, there's a school board member in the room.
Was it public, Sheila?
Is that public?
I believe it is.
It would have to be.
Check with Steve Ward.
but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I'd have to confirm it with Steve Ward.
Do you know what meeting that was, Sheila?
Oh, gosh.
Was it two
Probably
meetings
2 meetings
ago?
ago. I haven't seen
Okay.
it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I heard Aaron Undion called me on this, has to be a month ago by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Chambers?
That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments? Sheila, do you have anything, or anyone else, anything to say about Jefferson Elementary? It's okay if you don't, but if you do.
I think the school board, we weighed all the options, and that's when we made our vote to proceed.
Okay.
The timeline for it?
Ashley's administrator's asking about the timeline to make you aware. We've outlined a couple of different timelines that could move, you could move through a planned unit development process. It requires a class 2 notice, it requires the planning commission to hear it, it requires the city council to have a public hearing and then to approve the general plan. Once we make it into the specific plan, the planning commission can approve the specific implementation plan, and the council has to do, I believe, has to do the same thing, but it doesn't require a second public hearing. So we're looking at, I spoke to Mr. Norman today, if things continue to progress, we're probably looking for approval on this in January.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this item? Is that Jason, anything further? Okay. Next, item 8, consider approval of a city donation policy, Mr. Michael Wendell.
So, any public entity should be very concerned with issues of transparency, especially as it comes to the handling of money or non-monetary items of value. This was one of the policies that we identified very early on into my tenure as something that we needed to refine. I believe it was something like a single paragraph in our financial acquisition policy or something like that. Fortunately, it was one that I had ready to hand, and Administrator Oliphant and I worked together to refine the language to meet what we think the city's needs were. The one change I don't see in the one that was posted here is we had discussed the specificity of the determination of the resource requirement of the donation.
I think under number 2, purpose, are you referring to including a determination?
Yep, there it is. Cool. All right, thank you. So what this donation policy does is it sets a $5,000 limit for department heads to accept a donation. Above that limit, a resolution by the council is required to accept a donation, and this would be for any monetary donation or any non-monetary item of value. We have very enthusiastic community groups, businesses, organizations who want to see the city flourish and are making donations, thankfully. And this just ensures that there is a means of tracking those donations, of reporting them, and formalizes the determination that needs to be made by the receiving entity, whether that be the department head or this body, in determining whether acceptance of the donation is in, again, the public best interest. There are certainly times when someone may have something that they are eager to donate, and one man's treasure is possibly another man's trash, and it's not of benefit to us. In which case, we would certainly want to thank the potential donee for their consideration, but would then decline to accept that. And so this is the draft proposal that I put together again with Administrator Oliphant's input, and certainly further amendments can be made if this council has suggestions, but otherwise I would advise implementing some kind of more formal donation policy.
Okay, so we really don't have a donation policy right now. We have a paragraph in some of the documents.
If I had to find it again, I'm not sure I could.
Okay, so this is replacing one. This is adopting a fresh correct?
Yes,
Okay, and this is a policy, not an ordinance, correct?
correct.
Okay, so it's simple, if the council likes the text, they can simply vote to accept this policy as the city's new donation policy.
Yes.
Or recommend any edits. Okay, so question, has the council had ample time to review the text?
Quick question, maybe you mentioned it and I just missed it, but where'd the $5,000 marker come from?
So when I said I had it ready to hand, I mean I stole it blatantly from another municipality. And that is the determination that they made for the value that they wanted reported. Certainly that value, there's no statutory or ordinance obligation for that. That's simply, it did seem reasonable, but of course I would defer to this council's preferences.
And I'll add, even though there's that $5,000 benchmark for reporting to council and then resolution, any donation regardless of amount, if it's less than $5,000, goes through this process and would need to be accepted by the department head or the department head and the administrator. And as Michael mentioned, perhaps we don't want to receive a donation for various reasons, but some reasons could be we simply don't have the capacity to utilize that donation because of our resources. So we don't want to accept something that we can't commit to actually utilizing.
Right. I was just asking about the 5,000 because I'm thinking then about, you know, department heads accepting donations 5,000 or under. You know, like you could have somebody come to the Parks Department and say, I want to donate a lawnmower to you guys. It's only $3,500, and the department says, or it says, okay. And then you see it and say, wait a minute, that's a residential lawnmower. We have no use for that. We have to use commercial stuff, or it's used. Did you know it was used? It's not brand new. I mean, I could see a lot of little caveats with it. So those were my two things that I noticed was the dollar amount, and then do we want it being the department heads are responsible for it, or do there need to be a process where they have to kind of work with you to determine if it is appropriate to accept it?
Well, currently how it's done is departments receive lots of donations of varying amounts, and they don't go through anyone. They just receive them. And fortunately, it hasn't been that lawnmower. It's been like park benches or things like that. So we've not had an issue which you're trying to guard against come up yet.
Okay. No, that's good to know we have them.
There are a couple alternatives. One, you could create a tier system, so up to $500 a department head can just accept. Up to $5,000 they need administrator approval to accept. Above $5,000 needs to be accepted by a resolution.
Okay. Okay, I asked once before, has the council had ample time to review this text? Anybody feel as though you have not? Okay, any suggested edits, further questions?
I think Mr. Wendell's idea about the tiered system is not a bad consideration to possibly, you know, remove ourselves from those situations that you just brought up, Melanie. You know, where it comes into something where one person has an idea that this is a good acceptance, and as it's looked at by another set of eyes and another brain, and go, wait a minute, we should kind of reconsider what that donation is. If a tier system, Mr. Wendell, you think is something that might be appropriate for this, maybe that should be something to be included in the wording.
And then I do have a question also. The history room is part of the library building, and it can fall under either possibly the county, the city, and the library board. So many times people think their Aunt Mabel's dishes are something that the city should keep. And, you know, at this point, we really don't have, other than trying to be polite and say, well, maybe not, or if this is something we can sell, you know, we do run into some situations with that. So I don't know if that could be part of this tiered system in some way. I don't know. Just accepting donations, and I don't know if our director would be involved in every step of that way. That's where I'm kind of questioning.
So donations to the library would be somewhat unique. And I know we're working to review bylaws thereof and adopt an ordinance for the library board. Off the top of my head, from what I recall of the statute governing a library board, I would think that if a donator made the donation to the library, the disposition of that donation would fall to the library board to determine whether the library board wants to adopt this policy as their own, simply refer to it if they don't adopt it on their own, or make up their own. I do believe that they are empowered to do so.
But I believe they donated to the history room, which...
Is that a separate entity?
It is.
Just housed in the library.
Pardon? Yes, it's housed in the library building, but it can fall under a separate. That's why
Is it, and maybe we should reconnect offline on this.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How do we address the donations that are going to require maintenance and upkeep?
Ladies first.
Yeah, okay. So that's part of the consideration. So part of evaluating whether or not we'll accept the donation is factoring in the long-term maintenance care operation of whatever it may be. And if it's going to obligate us to something that's not in alignment with the policies or the vision of the city, then we're not to accept that. And so with the proposed tier system at the 0 to 500 range, where departments would have the discretion to accept or deny a donation, it's unlikely that they're going to receive something that's going to require a tremendous financial resource for direct maintenance and care. But as we go up, that potential exists, and so you'd have to rely on the discernment of these individuals in order to make that decision if it's below 5,000.
Is that spelled out anywhere in this policy other than
So
definitions and item 1?
That was the change that I didn't see that Administrator Oliphant pointed out to me that she was quite emphatic about. It's under Section 2 purpose, the last sentence, beginning at the last comma, including a determination as to whether the resources needed to make use of the donation outweigh its utility. And the intention is to address that exact scenario where we get a maybe $2,500 used lawnmower, but it doesn't have an engine. And so we're going to need to invest a significant amount of money to make any use of it. That would be something where the department head would be empowered to say, thank you, but no thank you.
Ms. Troxel, did you have a comment?
I just had a question. So, like as far as the donating, as far as like the playground equipment, the announcer booth, the kayak landing, if I would want to do that, let's say my family in the future, would this be the policy? Because those items started off at like 15,000 and went up from there. So I'm just wondering, is that going to be something different from this? I can see the thought process, which I think is great. But I just wondered at like the different tiers or how that works. I just was
15,000 would be solidly within council approval territory. So what I could envision is that the donor reaches out to either a department head or something like that, and the department head works with them, assesses the value of the potential donation, and then issues a recommendation to the council as to whether or not that donation should be accepted.
Thank you.
Okay, so did we, any other comments or suggestions?
I will just say that we've gone this long without a policy. If you want some more time to digest this, suggest changes, that's certainly your prerogative. Otherwise, I can suggest amendments to this draft to incorporate the tier system. But if you wanted more time to evaluate it, I would certainly understand.
So the choices here would be to adjourn to a future meeting or waive the rules, suspend the reading, and make a motion to adopt this policy. Either are applicable depending on the council's choice.
I don't think you'd have to waive the rules though, because it's not an ordinance.
I just asked them.
Oh, you do?
So far as I'm aware, I don't think it, does it specify?
It won't hurt to waive it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess first thing, that is open to the council, if someone would like to make a motion to entertain that. Either.
So one more question.
Yes.
Because I haven't had time to read the whole thing. So I know one thing that's come up also with the history room is, once we've accepted it, does that give us legal possession of it so that if we chose, we could sell it?
So this policy, that is more or less the reason that we began investigating it. It does allow, upon donation and upon acceptance of the donation, the donated material or money becomes exclusively the city's to use as it will, including sale.
I just didn't read that in here.
Number eight.
Number eight, thank you. Let's get skinny there.
So, just a question on my side of things like with canine unit. We receive donations quite often. So if we, per se, we get a check on December 15th from an individual for $1,500, which depending on what the tier looks like, but this person is wanting that check cashed and put into effect before the end of the year because of tax purposes, we have no more council meetings to bring that ahead.
Billy, I think this would be falling under the established fundraising efforts. Your canine donations, so there would be a difference in application there.
Okay. I just didn't want to step on someone else's toes.
Well, and you can think about the aquatic center as well, right? People pledge money and donate money every year, but it's part of something that we're accounting for within the budget we're planning on. It's within the policies and the vision of the city, of the department, of the council as well. So that would be referred to as established fundraising efforts.
Sure. And if that's in there, obviously I haven't seen this.
Another consideration would be the insertion of a provision allowing exceptions to the procedure in the event that delay to accepting the donation would render it unusable or unacceptable. So if the donator were to say, you can have, actually I ran into a situation very similar to this, but I will donate X amount of money to you, but you have to take this action or you have to accept it by this time, otherwise I'm withdrawing my offer. Certainly there would need to be a reporting requirement or something along those lines, but it could be a provision saying that the department head is authorized in such cases to accept those on behalf of the city. However, it needs to be recorded and we would reserve the right to return it if the council deemed it.
And we would have conversations.
Okay, so I don't, if the council feels prepared to adopt a policy, we can entertain a motion to do that. If not, simply make a motion to adjourn to the next meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to the next meeting.
Okay, motion, is that Mr. Downs? Motion by Mr. Chambers, second by Mr. Downs. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of adjourning this item to the next meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, next on the agenda, introductory presentation by city attorney, including review of the office initial findings and recommendations. Mr. Michael Wendell. Thanks, Sheila.
All right, I'm going to stand so you only have to face one direction. So, if you don't know me, I'm Attorney Michael Wendell. I am your city attorney. I asked around and apparently nobody has ever taken the time to explain to you what that means. And so I thought I'd take that opportunity to do so here tonight. And then as well, I provided to the council the memorandum. I have some follow-up that I'll be doing on that. So this is my City Attorney 101 presentation. So why am I here? I want to provide a primer on the role of the city attorney, review that memorandum, and then provide an opportunity to ask any questions, anything that you may have wanted to know about a city attorney. What am I? I am the civil attorney for the county, or city, which means that I draft ordinances. I represent us in ordinance enforcement for civil actions, so OWI 1s, several juvenile matters. I theoretically defend us should suit be brought against the county, and represent the county should we need to bring suit against others. City. City. And as well, I operate at Jason's beck and call for whatever research project he's come up with lately. I was appointed by the mayor, confirmed by this council, under state statute, which is thus far the only policy governing the operation of the city attorney. I am subject to removal by the mayor's pleasure or for cause by the council. As I just said, I'm not aware of any ordinance governing the city attorney's appointments, duties, or that govern access to my services. The department heads have been directed to include Administrator Oliphant if they need or feel they need my input on something. But if there is some limitation that the council wishes to impose on people's access to me, then that is their prerogative. Otherwise, I generally operate on the principle that it's easier to answer a question than defend a lawsuit, and so I try to make myself available. Of course, I serve at the pleasure of the council as well, so at any time, please feel free to reach out to me with any questions, comments, or concerns. Again, some more examples of things that I do. I'm your parliamentarian, so I advise on questions of order, ethics complaints, and providing training. That last one we'll elaborate on a little bit later. One thing that I always take pains to make clear is that I represent the city. I do not represent the mayor. I do not represent the administrator. I do not represent the council. I represent the city. Barring any kind of policy restricting my discretion, I operate with the understanding that I am empowered to make the decisions that I feel are most appropriate for the best interests of the cities. I've told department heads, and I'll tell council members as well. Sometimes that will mean that I receive information that I don't necessarily share with yourselves, mayor, other bodies. Other times there's information that someone may tell me that they want to keep confidential, but that I feel needs to be shared. And so, again, I will not operate for any individual's best interests. I will at all times operate as I see fit in the interests of the city. There's my favorite saying again. I do, however, believe strongly that the city's best interests are served by having educated, confident, and competent alderpersons, and so I highly recommend, and will do so again and again, that you take advantage of every opportunity to educate yourselves, not just on legal matters, but matters of procedure, attend each other's committee meetings, really understand to the best that you can the full operations of the city that you represent. Again, there's no presumption of privilege, so I always say that attorney-client privilege is the only thing that TV gets right about the practice of law, but any city personnel or official who approaches me with information cannot depend on me keeping that information confidential, again, if I feel the city's best interests are represented by me telling someone else. Any questions based on that?
Questions or comments for Mr. Whittle? Yeah.
Just talked about educating yourselves.
How long have you been an attorney?
It's what, November, 4 years I've been licensed for the practice of law.
So just so everyone's aware, you not only represent the city, but we've heard maybe you also represent another entity.
I think I've made that clear that yes, I also serve as the corporation counsel for Richland County, hence me waving to Candace when she walked in. And I've spoken before, there are ethical ramifications to that dual representation. However, I believe that I am capable of navigating those, and I'm certainly willing to take direction. I can think of at least one matter I can already think of where I want to get out of the way, because I don't think I'd be helpful to either side other than presenting a voice of reason. But yes, I do represent the county as well. My experience with the county has been very helpful in a number of issues already. There are significant differences between the city chapter and the county chapter. And so certainly I've had some surprises as well. The carpeting would be a good example, but I think that my experience representing the county has definitely been an advantage for me.
Further questions for Attorney Wendell? Thank you, Mike.
I got more. You got it. Well, you're going to be sick of me talking. All right, so I sent a message, a memorandum to the members of this council. I didn't write it with the intention that it be confidential by any means, and so if you feel that it's helpful to share it with the public, you're certainly free to do so. However, I did take the liberty of speaking frankly. Now, while I have the position of being something of an outsider, again, with that experience in municipal law, and just some of the challenges that the city is facing, that I can tell you that other municipalities are right there with you. So I wanted to take this advantage, this opportunity to try and share some of the lessons that they've learned the hard way, so that you guys can kind of skip those growing pains and get right to the efficient operation of the city. Yep. So training. You guys have day jobs and other things going on, potentially kids, spouses, I don't know what you get up to in your free time, but there is a lot that goes on with the operation of a city government, of any government. There is a lot that you are beholden to in terms of statutes that you may not necessarily know about. And so I, again, recommend taking every opportunity that you have to attend trainings. I'm certainly willing to present on subjects that I feel I'm capable of presenting on, open meetings, open records, those sorts of things. I do an orientation for new county board supervisors. I would certainly be willing to do an orientation for older persons as well. Additionally to yourselves as the elected officials, personnel as well, I'm sure that there is a whole school that a lineman knows about electricity and the function and conveyance thereof that I'll never know in a million years, but he or she may not know the first thing about workers' comp law or something like that. And so, you know, those opportunities should be presented to employees as well, because a more informed employee base is a more effective employee base. The main point, the main takeaway from my observations of the city thus far, and I spoke briefly to the Public Safety Committee about this earlier, you made a huge shift in the way that your government operates by changing to an administrative form of government. I believe, based on my observations, that you are coming to the end of what I'm calling the honeymoon period. You have seen everything that an administrator can do for you. What we're now running into is situations where she wants to do things that maybe you're used to doing, that you don't want her doing, or that it's not clear who should be doing. And so my recommendation is to establish clear areas of authority. In addition to just the administrator role, humanity as a race tends to subscribe to the if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so certainly there are situations where people have been left to devise a solution to an issue. It worked, and thus there's no real cause to go back and make sure it was done the right way as long as it keeps working. As convenient as that may be, and certainly the easier option, When it turns out that it's not done the right way, the consequences can often outweigh the utility. And for the city, this manifests as outdated or non-existent procedures, policies, and ordinances. I was in the Planning Commission meeting the other day. Anyone tell me off the top of their heads when the Planning Commission ordinance was passed? 1933. Has not been amended since, that I can tell. It derives all of its authority from state statute. There's no specific provisions governing its operation for the city. That's perfectly fine, but it should be revisited and the discussion should be had, especially if there are deficiencies in the way that the Planning Commission is operating. Certainly you can look for solutions to those. The crux of my question to the council is dependent on an understanding that the council is the policy-making body of this government. You dictate how you want things to make sure I'm phrasing this correctly. You dictate what you want to happen, and then you delegate to personnel the actual application of that policy. There are governments wherein the policy-setting body is much more involved in the day-to-day operations. There are situations where they basically pass an ordinance and hand it off to mayor, administrator, whoever they have, and never look at it again. There's no right answer to what level the council should be involved in addressing these policy deficiencies other than a half measure. You need to commit to either being involved that day-to-day, if we run into a problem, you should be in the circle of people whom I call to address it, or you need to make the decision that you trust the staff that you've hired or appointed and delegate to them the responsibility and authority they need to do the jobs that you hired them for. Again, this doesn't come up until such time as there is a conflict between what the two of you are looking to accomplish, either due to a misinterpretation of what the policy is, or because there was no clear expectation of what the intended outcome of an action was. So if you are not setting clear expectations for staff of what you want to occur, don't be surprised if they come up with something other than what you intended. So just an example that I'd like to go through quickly here. We've been discussing the Director of Public Works. I've reviewed the ordinance governing it, 1965, completely divorced from the reality of the position even when we had someone. And so I just want to use that as an example of what I'm talking about here. So again, outdated ordinance. I don't know what a city engineer does, and not for that I didn't look for it. Like when this came up, I researched it, and so far as I can tell, it's written in statute as an officer of the city and then mentioned nowhere else again. However, the DPW is also currently directly the plumbing, building, and electrical inspection for the city and provides oversight of the streets department. That ordinance needs to be updated. I took a crack at one and I'm just now realizing I forgot to bring it, so it's not very helpful. But my concern here is, how do you want ordinances to come to you? And again, the way that it currently operates, apparently the city attorney drafts all the ordinances, perfectly fine with that. It's not overly difficult. But the county operates, department heads draft their ordinances. They're sent to me for review before the meeting, and then the board gets to look at the final product. There have certainly been times when elected officials have put together ordinances as well. It's just typing at the end of the day, so it's not overly hard, but you need to be aware of all the potential interactions, and that's where having me review it comes in. We want to change the the Director of Public Works position to reflect the reality of it and potentially remove it from the ordinance so that it can be more easily amended. Who makes that job description? Is that the Personnel Committee? Is that the whole council? Do you delegate that to the administrator as she is the designated personnel officer? Again, her job description states that she is meant to ensure complete and current job descriptions, but does not specifically say that she's meant to create them. It just says that she has to make sure they exist. So far as I can tell, there is no policy on who creates a job description. Another deficiency, I would say, is that there is no committee structure document. So I am not certain that I could name all of the committees of this council. I know they're on the website, so I could find it if I needed to, but the specific responsibilities are not delegated to them or clarified, other than in discrete instances in other ordinances and policies where they reference to it. And then we get to the hiring policy. This is just a breakdown of your current hiring policy. It is, I will say, much better than it was prior to the amendment of May of 2022, wherein you incorporated the administrator to the process. There was, applications were sent to the clerk and then numbered and then anonymously forwarded, and yeah, nonsensical. All right, I left it in there. But it needs to be made more clear who has the final hiring authority. Right now, all of the applications are sent to the administrator. The administrator makes recommendations when it comes to department heads. But when it comes to employees, department heads actually have the final hiring authority. I certainly see the sense to that. However, the council also delegated to the administrator the role of personnel officer. And it would certainly be sensible for her to have the final hiring authority as well. I'm not certain that the full range of the administrator's job description, which is adopted as part of the ordinance or as part of the contract end ordinance, I'm not entirely certain that the council understands the interpretations that could be made of that job description and the authority that is delegated to the administrator by it. And so just having those conversations, making sure, all right, she's the personnel officer. What does that mean? What do we want her doing? What do we not want her doing? What do we want the personnel committee to weigh in on? What don't we want it to weigh in on? So revision to the hiring policy, revision to the administrator job description, review the exemptions to the policy. There are certain officers who are exempted. And then the last point certainly could go either way, but is to just remove the personnel committee from the process entirely. I certainly would understand that that's a significant delegation of authority and trust to the administrator. There are advantages in terms of efficiency, but it is something that I think a further discussion is warranted. And then this is a whole lot of words. I already said the main point of this, which is the only wrong answer is not to commit fully one way or the other. If you're willing to put in the time and the work to be the everyday manager who is involved in every part of the process of the operations, that's excellent, that's laudable. It is exhausting and time consuming, so be aware of that. If you do accept that you want to see things handled by personnel, then you need to accept that that means that they're not going to be handled by you. And the best thing that you can do to facilitate their work is get out of their way.
When you use the term personnel, you mean city employees, not the personnel committee.
Yes,
Thank you.
my apologies. Yes, and so, again, my point in having this conversation now, it's certainly not meant to be a critique or it's meant to be a critique, not to be a criticism. I am not blaming anyone. Nothing is disastrous. These are issues that municipalities across the state, probably across the country, possibly across the world are facing. You have the benefit of someone who has been dealing with similarly positioned municipalities for his entire legal career. I am simply telling you that these are things that have had to happen in other municipalities going through similar circumstances, and I recommend that you take them under advisement now rather than wait for a situation to develop that forces you into their consideration. Speaking of consideration, I appreciate yours and the time that you granted me tonight.
Any questions or comments for Attorney Liddell? Thank you, Mike. Okay. Item 10, discussion and possible action in relation to the restructure of the clerk treasurer's office and amendment of applicable ordinances. Ashley, did you want to comment on that?
Sure. As what has been mentioned, with Sean's retirement, that's always when we have a change in personnel, there's an opportunity to reevaluate structure and function and all of those things. And so that's just what we did. In the personnel committee, we met and discussed the clerk treasurer's office and determined that a decoupling, if you will, was the appropriate path forward. So rather than having a merged clerk treasurer position, we would have a clerk and a treasurer. And then right now it's an office of 3 and it would remain an office of 3. And Beth, as I had mentioned earlier, she's a deputy. She's repositioned as an administrative assistant, which is why she's seated now out in the lobby rather than in the office to help improve the function and flow of operations for the office. So in your packet tonight, you have ordinances for both clerk and treasurer. Michael can probably speak to this better than I, but these are considered a charter ordinance, which means they would not go into effect for 60 days after adoption if you so chose to adopt these ordinances.
Mr. Wendell, anything to add before I do?
I was going to wait for somebody to ask what a charter ordinance means.
You can go ahead.
At the creation of the city, they passed a charter ordinance. I believe that dates back to 1897. It is the equivalent, I would say, of the Constitution to the city. And ordinances that amend the charter ordinance carry with them certain protections. Again, the requirement for publication after passage by the council. There is a procedure by which the electorate can force the matter to go to a referendum. In drafting these proposed ordinances, the only term I could think of is sort of a reverse Ouroboros, but the ordinance themselves, by passage as a charter ordinance, would then remove itself from the charter ordinance. And so that way, if these needed to be amended or changed in the future, it would be much easier to do so. I do not believe I know there's no necessity, and I don't believe it's in the city's best interest to have these offices enshrined in the charter ordinance. I think that unduly burdens this council in terms of being able to make change in the policy and procedure that govern their operation.
Okay, so would these be considered, I guess, new ordinances, or are they an addition or amendment to the charter?
They are themselves charter ordinances up until the point that the charter ordinance procedure is completed. So upon their full passage, they no longer are charter ordinances. But because any ordinance which repeals, amends, or replaces a charter ordinance becomes a charter ordinance, these have to be passed using the charter ordinance procedure.
Okay. Council, any questions, comments on why to do this? Questions on how we got here, or if not, we can proceed. But if you do, go ahead, Melanie.
Just a question on both of these because they have similar language. And it says in both of them that they would be appointed by the mayor subject to confirmation by the council. Which right now both of those positions they're hired positions, they're not appointed positions.
So that was actually something that Administrator Oliphant had raised. So first of all, if they're hired positions, then they're currently in violation of the existing ordinance because that's where the language for these came from.
Sorry, Aaron.
Again, proactive review of existing ordinances helps preclude these issues. There are, five options for how the clerk can be appointed per statute because it is a statutorily required city officer. So your options are appointment by the mayor, subject to confirmation by the council, appointment by the council, election by the voters, selection under any of the above methods, the selection to be made from an eligible list under section 66.0509, which is the civil service municipal statute, which I do not recommend, and if the council is interested in pursuing, will require additional research.
So this has to be an appointed position?
Yes.
Okay.
Never mind.
Okay, so then I assume the reason this is worded the way it is that the preferred or suggested method is for appointed by the mayor but confirmed by the council, for example, the way we appointed the city attorney.
That is correct, and again, that was the language that exists currently.
Right. Okay.
Which I take that to mean that when we decide to do this at the following meeting, somebody could walk in and tell the mayor, I am interested in being your treasurer, I feel I'm qualified for the job, and he could say, okay, I want to appoint them, and we either say yes or no, and we don't have to go through the entire hiring process to reference, background check, all of that.
You have struck upon another perfect example of the power of the policy setting body. So this ordinance establishes the position of clerk and determines how they can be appointed. The potential candidates for appointment can be further refined by policy passed by this body. So either is part of a standalone ordinance or as a policy governing all city officers potentially. This body could establish certain standards. So in order to be considered by appointment by the mayor, a candidate for the office of treasurer needs to meet the following qualifications. They need to be, pass a background check, pass a drug test, whatever you may have. So this gets the position on the books, and then you have the opportunity to determine how you want these potential appointees to be determined.
Okay, so for example, Mr. Joyce is city clerk. Will we need to appoint him to that? That has not happened.
If that's, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what.
And when he was hired, though, it was recommended by personnel to council and then approved by council?
Did you ever say the words I appoint here? Like
No, I never said
specifically
that. I
appointed
absolutely
me?
did not.
No.
That's why I'm asking, because it's an easy enough thing to correct if we need to do it. I just need to know if we need to do that.
I'm concerned that you couldn't do it now because it wasn't properly agended.
Well, we don't have to do it at the second,
Okay.
at the next time we meet, we can
Yes.
do that. Because I certainly didn't do that. And council did not.
I didn't think to ask that, I apologize,
It's
but yes,
okay,
no,
but
it's
just so we correct it, which I'm sure we will, but making sure that's something we need to do. It sounds like it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So just to clarify for me, just because, since, I'm chair personnel, I probably should understand this. So we will have to define how we want them to get to the place where we appoint them. So if we still want them to go through the hiring process, and then we take it to the mayor and say, we would like you to appoint this person, then, so we can still go through our regular process of actually like going through a hiring process, say for a treasurer, looking for a treasurer, and then say to the mayor, this is who we would recommend that you appoint at the next meeting to this position.
You could impose that requirement on a potential appointee, yes. And I will point out that as it currently exists, Chapter 44 does dictate the appointment of the current clerk treasurer, and it is appointed by mayor, subject to confirmation by council, so.
Okay, so if we get into that, we should be uniform, because for example, we have a city attorney, and I've never, and I don't know any mayor that ever did, have the council review attorneys. And they go, well, this is our recommendation to you to recommend to us to confirm.
I certainly appreciate benefiting from that policy. It's certainly, again, worth discussion. Again, one of my proposed recommendations was removing personnel committee from that process. It's, you're envisioning or you're stating a situation where the personnel committee is advising the mayor on a potential appointee who then refers that appointment back to the full council. Well, there's 9 of you, 1/3 of you have already, 8 of you, 1/3 of you more or less has already offered your opinion on the nominee. And so whether, you require certain benchmarks to be met before the mayor can consider someone for appointment. And again, it is certainly your prerogative to make those conditions approval by the personnel committee, but it's worth consideration of just leaving that process to the mayor exclusively, so that his presentation to this body is I don't want to say unbiased, that's a negative connotation, but fresh.
I just want to make sure, because especially in this position of a treasurer, this is the person who day to day is going to be, probably besides the administrator, dealing with the city's finances, the inflow and outflow of money. And so to me, this is a position that we need to make sure that we have the correct person, they've been fully vetted. So when I think of an appointment, that's what I think of is that, when I first got on council, I got appointed, I literally called in and said, I'm interested in the position, and the council said, okay, it's yours.
Right.
They knew nothing about me.
Right.
So
I mean,
this position in particular, that the way they're gonna get appointed, that is what makes me nervous. I wanna make sure that we are picking the correct person, because again, that person is your primary point of contact for all the cash flow for the city.
so that's where the council could ask any questions they wanted to the nominee, if you will, or reject it, correct?
Yes.
So so to keep the mayor from just going, this is the guy.
Right.
Yeah, which that's already in place on other appointments. Yeah, which I think it should be, for that reason. It's just no different than a lawyer, right? I mean, if somebody just picks someone who's not qualified, you're nuts.
Do not trust me as treasurer, I am bad at math.
We're not gonna do that.
Well, a degree.
Yes.
That's the difference. So you're qualified to be a lawyer. Hopefully you seem to be a good lawyer.
We'll see.
Okay, so we've got some things to fix. We covered that. And there's room for discussion and changes going forward to policy,
Yes.
which the council can do. To create, to separate clerk and treasurer and create them in the new mold. This must be done.
Define this.
Okay,
Not to get
so
Clinton
we
about it.
have right here,
Yes.
using the charter ordinance method to get this created, we have to, the council will need to approve this that was presented to us to do that.
44.03 can be subject to change if the council would prefer a different appointment procedure. But yes, the rest of the language is either required or is my fix for getting this out of the charter ordinance in the future. So it would be my recommendation that the rest of the language be adopted as is.
Okay.
So 4403 was the appointment, and you said there are 5 options. So the only thing that can be changed about the ordinance that you have before you is the third one, so appointment method. So appointment by mayor subject to confirmation by council, appointment by the council, election by the voters, and then selection under any of the above methods. The selection to be made from an eligible list established under the statutes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't, no argument with Melody's point of the critical nature of the position. As I said, in the same level that the city attorney is, has to be competent and vetted and so on. And I think that's why the check and balance is there, that the mayor doesn't just pick somebody. I don't even advocate for that.
And certainly, you were the only one who asked about the ethical concerns that I faced with the dual representation, and that would be what is envisioned by the confirmation process.
Okay, so at this point then, does the council wish to have any amendments to this or to make a motion to adopt, correct?
Adopt, yes.
Adopt Chapter 44, creating the office of city clerk as presented.
Do both at once or 2 separate?
It's up to you.
The other one is
Chapter, so
43, yeah,
we,
which is creating the city treasurer.
We needed to renumber things a little bit, but they take care of themselves.
All right, huh? Okay. All right, so in this case, chapters 43 and 44, I'm coming. All right, yes, go ahead.
Well, I just have a question about that safety out here. You know, we all did all this, the glass, and we did all the windows blinds so that people can't come in, they can directly come in and...
Are you equally concerned about the safety of the mayor, the zoning administrator, the assessor, the economic development director, or the administrator? Because we're all out there too.
Right, and I thought that was why you had the blinds, so... I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. To me, it's a safety concern.
So, and that's something that has been discussed, Beth and I have discussed directly with one another. It's something that I've discussed with the mayor as well, for safety concerns for everyone out there as well. So it's not something that's gone unnoticed or not considered.
No, I agree, and there's been past budget discussion about putting that same glass on that half for all of those offices, everything out there. And I would say if we do that and we have an employee out there, then that person should be as protected as the rest of us. And that's, we did just talk about this yesterday, and we'll have to work through it because this is all evolving right now. But I agree in the bigger picture. You know, we have 2 offices protected that way and a bunch of the building that's not. And I think it should be uniform. And we'll have to address that though. Okay. All right, so again, to the council, I'll entertain a motion to adopt chapters 43 and 44, creating the offices of city treasurer and city clerk, unless there are any amendments you would like to propose.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just a little confused, trying to get my brain wrapped around all this. What is the current ordinance for the clerk treasurer? Where's that
at? So it is chapter 44 is,
can you pull it up on there?
No, drive if you have access to it.
So Ashley gave me a thumb drive with all of our ordinances, so I have it on my screen, but I don't believe they're readily accessible.
It's not on the website?
On the website is a somewhat nebulous condition. It may well be on there, whether or not we could find it in a timely manner is in question. So
what's the difference between what you're proposing and what is current?
There are 2 different offices.
Oh, so this would be to divide the current position Because right now, what we have states it as clerk treasurer, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Oh, which I guess the old one says appointed by mayor, subject to confirmation by council. Sorry, Aaron.
Both as a sanity and cost-saving measure, you will find that I reuse language whenever possible in drafting documents. If it ain't broke.
So this doesn't, the new policy, 4403, as I'm looking at it, and I guess let me take a look at 4303, yeah, both of those don't give a, in the current, I'm guessing that's current language.
Yes.
Gives a 2/3 affirmative vote, subject to confirmation by a 2/3 affirmative vote of the common council, whereas these new, the new language on both of those for 43 and 44 don't provide that fractional approval.
Successors decided would be required.
So do we need to amend the proposed language to reflect what the current language is for that affirmative vote? If we have 8 members, we've got a 4-4, is there a tie-breaking member? Is the mayor the tie-breaking? I mean, you don't have to vote for that, correct? Because if you're doing the
That raises an interesting question, because if the mayor is appointing.
correct, you can't be the tie-breaking vote.
Okay, so
That may have been the reasoning that led to that 2/3 number.
So can we do a 5/8?
Isn't it?
I'm just throwing out.
When you're,
Well,
isn't it
yes.
usually?
That's what I'm
determined by
saying, that's
council as a
majority.
Majority vote, correct?
So anything less than a majority would be a failure.
Yeah,
which came from the prior city attorney.
okay.
I mean, isn't that the way most of our motions are? You have to have a majority.
Well, most
vote.
of them have the mayor capable of
I
making
can
a
break a
tiebreaker.
tie on if we're passing an ordinance for something downtown, but on something I'm appointing,
This is an appointment.
that's a little different, because now I'm affirming my own
Correct.
choice. So amended to read 2/3, which 2/3
Certainly.
in this case, I believe, is 6. Because 5/8 is not 2/3.
Math.
It's not 2/3.
No, it's not.
So they've always, every time I ever asked any city attorney I worked with, they told me that anything that needed 2/3 needed 6 of the 8.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I believe
Well, then
that's true.
3/4.
Oh, okay, fair enough. However we want to do it, you got, here's the point, that at one point that Michael's tried to make tonight, you're the policy-making body. So if you wanted to say 2/3, you want to say 5 out of 8, whatever, you guys can put that in.
Which isn't majority vote, isn't that 5 out of 8,
It would be
right?
On full council.
on full council.
On full council.
So if somebody's gone that night,
Right.
then it's 4 out of 7, because it's still majority.
So is that what we need to have in here is majority vote?
If that's what you want.
That's what I'm asking. I'm not just asking you, that's what I'm asking.
Yes, I got it, how you guys want to do it. I got it.
So there's a difference between members seated and members present, which might speak to what you're talking about. So, you know, a majority of members present is a different number than a majority or 5/8 of
So phrase
seated.
it majority of vote of members present. Just phrase it like that. Because if somebody's gone, which tonight somebody is, you just know it's 4 out of 7.
As long as you have quorum, obviously.
Thank you, Mr. James.
I do my best.
We
Okay,
wouldn't have gotten to this point without quorum, so.
that's very true.
Right.
Okay, so do you folks want to amend this to read that you need a majority vote of council members present?
Of council members
Is that
present.
how you want it?
And not a super majority?
It's up to you guys.
Well,
Don't.
seriously.
I don't understand.
I like 3/4. I like 3/4.
Well,
I'm sorry, I honestly think when it says subject to confirmation by the council, that automatically means by majority vote.
So do I, unless it says specifically otherwise.
And like I said, I agree with the attorney, I'm not sure, I think it was probably their preference to say 2/3 affirmative vote. And maybe it's because the mayor can't tie break.
But if you just state majority of members present, if you get a tie, you don't appoint anybody. If you can't break the tie.
So question.
Yep.
So in what instances do they typically have a supermajority for a vote? Fairly substantial appointing a clerk is pretty substantial,
As
so.
well as a treasurer.
Budgetary consideration, there's a whole cheat sheet that we can pull up on Wisconsin municipal procedure that requires supermajority votes. I don't have it readily accessible, but off the top of my head, I can remember, significant expenditures, adoption of budgets. I know some municipal borrowing requires a supermajority.
But I don't think for the hiring of the administrator, it required that. For the firing of the administrator, it does.
Which was the language in the employment contract.
Right,
Yeah.
so, but to hire me, it wasn't 2/3.
I don't believe it was. It's to remove.
Right, so to make
I
it
was
more,
unanimous, so I don't know.
to make it more restrictive for this position is
Get
inconsistent.
out of here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, it's up to you guys, but a simple majority will get it done.
Gave me options, so I thought.
No, I understand where Karen's coming from, because if you are talking about these positions that are
Needs to state.
of significance, and if we're talking about the treasurer, the person who, is in charge of, if you will, the purse strings of the city's budget, that's not an insignificant position, nor is administrator, nor is clerk, so I guess what I'm asking is, are those positions that we may or may not deem significant, would we need to require more than just a simple 51%? If we're talking majority, do we need to have something a little bit more significant than that to ensure that, I mean, if you've got a 4 out of 7, and the person that's not here would have maybe said, yeah, I don't know, I know a little bit, I'm not saying that we wouldn't do our due diligence in vetting the person that would be applying or anything, but I would hate to run into a situation where, had we had one more person present at council, that vote would maybe not have gone the way it went.
You're gonna have to define which position.
I don't disagree with that either, Mr. Melby. And I don't know, as Mr. Wendell's been saying, it's our purview to discuss those things. Because it's not just for the 7 of us tonight or the 8 of us total sitting here, it's for whoever's gonna take over another position in, let's say, April or 2 years down the road or whatever that might be. It's not just for tonight, I guess.
So what might be discovered after going through a rigorous, thorough hiring process and then being a recommendation to the mayor? Let's say we're doing the typical hiring process from personnel, they're making a recommendation to the mayor, and then that mayor is bringing that to council. What might be discovered from the time the mayor brings it to council to approval or denial that would not have been found out otherwise that would sway a decision?
I'm gonna jump in really quick. Speaking from personal experience, if a situation is brought forth where a person's livelihood moving forward is in question, and if you had to have a supermajority rather than just a 51% majority, that can have dramatic impacts on. And I'm not saying that, so transparency might be one of those things, and I'm not saying that anybody in here wouldn't be transparent with those things, but just from personal experience, I've experienced when there isn't that transparency with folks. And so I would hate for us to make a decision that we could make, with a simple majority, but regret that decision later, and then it takes, as we see here, it takes then a supermajority, a 2/3 vote, to remove that position after we've made that, I don't want to say bad decision, but maybe not as informed decision as we could. That's kind of what I'm bringing forward.
Just to throw a point out there, because I love to math. So a majority of 8 people is 5 votes.
Right.
2/3 of 8 people is 5.33. So there's no third of a person voting, so it's still going to be 5 votes.
Or 6.
It's always been explained, at least to me, by the last 2 city attorneys, that that means 6 because 5
Round up.
isn't enough.
Okay.
So,
So,
law doesn't follow math.
well, I should follow math rules.
So I guess my point with the supermajority is if we go that route and we have a committee that goes through the process and recommends to the mayor. Typically that committee numbers 3 or 4 people. So the rest of the council has not heard all of that information. So that kind of leaves a few people without a complete picture. And so be it, I mean, that way, if it is a supermajority, then you would have hopefully more people involved and, have a more of a consensus than just the committee recommending to the mayor and the mayor appointing, and then we go, okay, you said, so I guess on these appointments.
I think this is a really interesting situation, and maybe Michael will speak to it more, because he went through his PowerPoint and left you with, we need to make a decision. You guys need to decide how involved or how much do you want to delegate. And here we have a situation where, if not for being the nature of a city officer as defined in statute, this really wouldn't even be a discussion right now. It's already taken care of.
Right.
And so, however, it is that city officer, so even though your decision could be, well, we're going to delegate and let personnel, whether that be staff or the committee itself, handle this, now you're forced into this process.
Right.
And so then it's how involved in the process do you want to be? And so if it's, really wanting to be very transparent and have maybe a supermajority or otherwise, well then I think we should be considering that with that maybe we do need to have a requirement of more involvement in the entire hiring process rather than it going through the normal chains, if that's sort of the thought process we're utilizing for the additional requirement.
Should be some consistency too, I think, because we already had, now this is a little bit different position, but we already have the city attorney and the city assessor. The mayor says this is who I choose, and the council, the thing is, it hasn't happened. The council could always reject whoever the mayor brings, and certainly could ask a lot of questions. We could certainly require the person being, I guess, nominated to be present for the council to ask any questions you might have, which makes sense when you're talking about things like treasurer, clerk, and attorney that are very big deals. And you've heard it 5 or 6 times. It's your choice how you want to phrase that and frame that. I just think they should be consistent. So we did create language in the administrator's contract. She was hired on a majority vote, but could be removed on a 2/3 vote. Doesn't mean it has to be that way forever, but on the contract that's in place right now, that's what it states. And I think there should be consistency, hired positions, appointed positions, so that we're not, which way are we doing this one? Okay, because you could get into that too. You gotta go look it up, and this one wasn't the same as that one, which doesn't make sense.
So a couple points. First, the removal provision in Administrator Oliphant's contract is required under statute. So that was not a decision that was made. Secondly, were you to adopt the ordinances just as they are, as written, you would still be empowered to demand any and all information that you would want to see before weighing in on an appointment. What you would need to do is allow yourself the time to request and the mayor to obtain the information that you're requesting. But whatever you as a council and each of you individually as alderpersons decide you need to see before you are willing to render a decision is what needs to be provided to you if we expect that decision to be made. So I'm not taking a position on how the appointment should happen. But I am saying that, reinforcing my earlier point, you are the body empowered to make these decisions, and simply, accepting this language does not rob you of any of that agency.
Yes, Mr. Karen.
I've seen that look before.
Any other questions or comments?
Michael,
Yes.
since we haven't followed the ordinance and we have never appointed anybody, you know, at least my time here, what legal ramifications are there for the city? And thank you for bringing that to our attention.
That's my job. Theoretically, we do not currently have a clerk. We have someone who is performing all of the, or treasurer.
Don't do it.
We have someone who is performing the duties thereof, is compensated in a commiserate manner, and has.
So does that mean everything that's done by the clerk, any statutory stuff that's been done since we never appointed it, do we have to do something with all the stuff that's been done prior?
I would say that it's clear that the intent was to make him at least acting clerk treasurer. And so I'm not concerned that any of his actions that he's taken part in or performed could be overridden simply by merit of us now knowing that the proper appointment procedure was not followed. I would, however, recommend correcting that at the earliest opportunity.
Can you bring up the 5 options we have on that big screen over there, please?
Do you have the internet?
Yeah. Is it chapter
6209 sub 3 sub A.
66 what?
6209. And then sub 3, manner of choosing. And sub B.
Control plus.
Plus.
Control plus.
That's good.
Or you can do that. 3 right there.
I like number 4, that would take us all out of this. Why is that fun?
I can't
I mean, it's done in
County government
townships
does it.
and county and everything else.
It's selection, which I would recommend we don't do that for the very reasons we're having such heartburn over this right now.
You literally just have to put your name on a ballot. You don't have to be qualified.
So the county does what the clerk of court, register of deeds, I don't know, the sheriff, are all elected positions over there.
Not too bad.
Coroner is as well, that's true.
Supreme Court justice doesn't need to be a lawyer.
That's true.
That's true.
It's not, sheriff does not have to be a law enforcement.
That's true, exactly. There was one in my youth that went to Fenimore to learn how to be. That's true.
Mr. Cairns, I like the idea of unloading the responsibility for us. I'm not sure that that's the one to.
Put it back to the constituents. I mean, we're making the decision, and just clear me up on the appointing. This still goes through personnel and the whole hiring process, or the mayor just picks somebody and brings them here and we get asked 600 questions at night?
As written, the latter, but you are empowered to make it the former. It'll take a little bit of work on the back end, but certainly I can draft you a policy that would mandate certain requirements for the mayor to consider an individual for nomination.
Yeah. Speaking of nominate time, who can appoint? Where's your list?
I like being on the spot.
Right. Okay, so the way this is, you intend to interview to hire a treasurer. This says don't, because it's appointed. Yeah?
The interview could inform potential responses to the
Okay,
council.
I didn't ask that.
Okay.
What I asked is, can you hire a treasurer or you gotta appoint?
You can hire a treasurer, it just won't be the city treasurer.
Well, then in other words, you can't, because you need to appoint a city treasurer. Michael,
Yes.
come on, man.
But
I don't wanna ask it 3 times,
But
but
yet we could say to Todd, if you're considering somebody that you want to appoint, what you need to bring forth to council is X, Y, and Z, information about that person. You need to talk to Billy and have a background check done on them, to do all this stuff before you even bring it before us.
but
You have
be
to do-
clear ahead of time that that is the expectation of the mayor.
Which is to say we gotta hurry up because we're going to need a treasurer here. So that means if you wanna have that sort of list of rules, we gotta get it. Which means there could very well be a special session in everyone's future here, because we're getting into some,
Michael, there's precedent for that, I'm assuming, correct?
yeah, we're coming.
For what?
For that list of questions, those requirements that the mayor would have to fulfill prior to bringing an appointee's name to the council.
It's not something I've ever had cause to research. I'm sure someone somewhere has done it.
Okay.
And I will certainly have an answer for you if that's the direction you choose to go.
Yes, Ashley.
Well, I think it would probably be ideal if we followed a regular hiring process in which it does call for a panel, in which it could be the mayor as part of that, and he could be as involved as he would want, or delegate some of that, like requesting a background check and posting the job and all of that. That could be delegated to me to execute, and then for him to review and participate in any degree in which he would like, in which he would then take to council for his appointment.
And why are we doing that with the assessor and the attorney? Again, I want uniformity. It's never been, none of us realized these were appointed positions, or if that had been. I just think we should have uniformity. I mean, why would I, in this case me, I'm the mayor now, bring Michael, everybody approved it, and now we're gonna do treasurer a different way. I don't think we should, and whatever way, I don't think we should do two ways.
I think if you're wanting to do this adoption and do this, we're striking a line in the sand and doing this forward. We're not going back and correcting all that.
Agreed, I just mean going forward, whatever the policy is, it should be for all of the appointed positions, not some of the appointed positions, going forward.
I will at some point be requesting this council to provide an appointment ordinance for me, so that could be adopted as part of that. I'm not familiar with the assessor's ordinance off the top of my head, but certainly we could amend that as well to bring it into conformity with this.
Mayor, so in April, you do go through that if you are mayor in April. So you go through that process, so it could be, fixed rather soon. I mean, it's not something, no, I just say going forward, we could do the same process.
Yeah,
For all of them.
I'm just saying, and what I'm stating is, that's right, but right now, first of all, we'll need to appoint a clerk, and second of all, there's a treasurer coming, which is an appointed position, so whatever policy is the council wants to handle those will be what we use going forward for everybody. But I mean, you still need to come up with what you want, because it's different than what we were about to do, because none of us were aware that this called for an appointment.
So Jason just pulled up the chapter 54, which is the assessor, and so within that you can see that it's appointed by the mayor and then confirmed by council.
Which the attorney is as well. I'm simply suggesting, if these are all appointed positions, whatever the policy is, should be the same policy for all of the appointed positions, whatever it is. All right, I don't consensus at all.
The policy is decided later.
That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So then for tonight, we simply
Pass these ordinances and work through.
now.
I was actually.
What do we have to do with the language here?
Either they can move to amend it to the majority vote or whatever fraction they decide on, or we'll leave it as is. And it'll just default to the majority.
Oh, okay, if anybody, you probably didn't hear that, what Mr. Wendell just stated is if you want to, the council wants to adopt these tonight, that the policy, how they're appointed and all that can be sorted out later, but to adopt these tonight, the one question that had come up was in 4303, which he just stated the council could say, for instance, we need a supermajority of 2/3, whatever, but then if you don't put specific language in there to that effect, it will be simple majority.
Can you pull that up, Jason, please? You're doing such a good job. You got big screen.
Which chapter again? This is the new one.
43.
This is the ordinance.
The proposed one or the existing one?
Proposed.
Okay. So yeah, you're in the draft ordinance.
This is the actual city's ordinance as it stands, is that what you're looking for?
No, what we're supposed to
Oh, the draft.
vote on.
Let's see, it's not this.
Should be that one right there. Yeah.
It's 44, and you wanted the other one?
43, first one. Is that right? Nope, sorry. Sorry, Jason, it's the second one.
I will say, barring job title, the language is all but identical between the two.
So Todd, what were you saying needed to be changed?
If you want to make a change, it would be 4303. If you want to put in specific language, for example, a 2/3 majority, or if you don't put specific language that states that, it will be a simple majority. Which is up to you guys.
This has to happen tonight. Is that what you're telling me?
I think it's a have to.
Sure.
I mean, we're,
It doesn't, but the treasurer
It should, so we
position
can
is
appoint
of importance.
next
Of
clerk
course it
that's
is.
been
A little bit
doing
urgency.
clerk, and
Well,
then we can
it
do
is,
treasurer.
yeah.
of course it
Okay,
is.
so when, without this? With the ordinance?
You can appoint him to the currently existing position of clerk/treasurer.
That's why to appoint these. That's why to approve these, to divide it,
So is that how this came up?
so we could separate them.
So this is Aaron's fault.
I guess.
Thanks, Aaron.
So that's why to approve them tonight. Does anyone want specific language other than a majority vote on 4303
4403.
and 4403? Thank you.
Yes.
How would you like it to read?
Yes.
You want it to read yes?
Agree, I agree with that.
What do you want, a 2/3?
Yes, 2/3.
I have a question. If you're gonna do 2/3 to approve, if you look at 4304, what is the subject to removal? Majority for that?
2/3.
So to remove it's 2/3. To
That's,
appoint,
Is that statute?
that is statute.
Statute says it has to be 2/3 to remove.
why wouldn't we keep it consistent?
You can. So simply, if you would like to, you could make a
I will
motion.
make that
You could make a motion to adopt chapters 43 and 44 with the amendments to both 4303 and 4403 to include language that states, the city treasurer shall be pursuant to Wisconsin statute 62093B2, appointed by the mayor subject to confirmation by the council with a 2/3 affirmative vote by the council.
It's worded
Is it 2/3 of seated or 2/3 of?
Well, it's going to be who's here.
Two-thirds
You
of
can't-
Well, you have to say, do you not have to say seated?
You don't have to.
You
It would
never have.
make the guy who comes after me's life easier if you did define it, but
So
otherwise it would default to
so
president.
two-thirds affirmative vote of seated members of council or present members of council. I wonder if you worded. Present,
I think it should be present because.
present members of council?
Yeah.
Is that your motion, Mr. Noe?
I worded it very greatly.
Mr. Joyce, how much of that did you get?
This acting clerk guy knows his stuff, you're doing good.
Did you
He's
do
been
chapter
in for
43?
I know, right?
Your motion?
That was 43 and 44.
43 and 44 with amendments to 4303 and 4403 to add the language with a 2/3 affirmative vote by present members of council. Yeah?
That is my motion.
Is there, okay, then you seconded, that's Steve Peter, Karen. So we got a motion from Mr. Melby and a second from Mr. Downs, and I will wait for you, Mr. Joyce.
Yes.
Can you clarify the
Can't do it.
2/3 quorum seated present? Mayor?
So if there are 8 people present, I believe that's 6. Because, okay, if there are 7 people present, does that drop then 5 or is it 4? Do the math, what's 2/3?
That's 3.
Everybody's ribbon.
5.
There we go. If 8 are present, it is 6. If 7 are present, it is 5. If 6 are present, it is 4.
Quorum is?
At least 5. Yeah, but that's on anything. That's just a majority present.
I'm just asking for clarification.
No, the answer is just a majority present in a quorum. Okay, we have the motion and the second. Is there further discussion on this item? Ron Perry?
You gotta suspend the rules and waive the reading. You're passing an ordinance on the first
That's true.
without a reading.
That's true, so we need to amend your motion, Mr. Melby. Please amend your motion to waive the rules and suspend the reading.
I will amend my motion to waive the rules and suspend.
Mr. Downs, is your second amended to reflect the same? Yes. Thank Rod, good call. All right, further discussion? Mr. Joyce will need a roll call vote.
Alderperson Melby?
Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Cairns?
Nay.
Kepley?
Aye.
McCarthy?
Aye.
Chambers?
Aye.
Walters?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, let's see, next on the agenda, appointments to committees, commissions, boards, to confirm there are none tonight. Public comment have not been made aware of anyone who would like to address the council tonight. No council action will be taken on any matter originating under this item. Is there anyone who would like to address the council?
Just briefly, I want to thank the council. Due to, in part, my service for the city, I was recently awarded the Bell Case La Follette Public Service Award by the Wisconsin Law Fellowship Foundation. And so, again, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for allowing me to serve the city.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, of course.
Bad news, I checked Rotary Lights and the only days that are open for volunteering are Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I mean, that's great.
I simply will not be able to do it.
Yeah, I know.
I can't do it.
Last year at this time, there were tons of openings. I was shocked when I logged on to see this. So it's very positive, but only Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
If you guys want to do it, which I have a feeling I know, but I simply will not be available. It's up to you guys. You don't have to decide that tonight at this meeting, but that's what's up. Okay, next on the...
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Downs, is there a second? All in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, that is carried.